The time is now 6 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting of the Vacaville City Council to order. Today is November 9th, 2021. Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Council Agency Authority Member Stockton.
Here.
Ritchie.
Here.
Silva.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wiley.
Here.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Sullivan.
Here.
Mayor, Chair Roulette.
I am present. If you would, please stand with me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will move on to item 3, approval of the agenda. Mr. City Manager, are there any items that are going to be moved?
No, there are not, sir.
Okay, I'll entertain motion.
Sullivan will move it.
Wiley, second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Yes.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
Yes. Item 4, approval of minutes. I'll entertain motion.
Sullivan will move it.
Thank you. Thank you. Roll call.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Yes.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley.
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
Yes. We'll move to item 5, presentations. I'll start with Chief Conception, if you want to start it off.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm going to turn it over to our Fire Marshal, Jill Childers, who will be doing the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. This evening, I'm here to share the results of our first ever Let's Make a Difference Day event. Next slide, please. I'm proud to present this video that showcases our first event. I want to take a moment and say thank you to Corey Booth for putting together this video and for all the photos he took the day of the event. This video can now be viewed using the QR code or visiting the COV Connect website. Crystal, can you please start the video?
Today is our first ever annual neighborhood cleanup. This is huge. Being able to come into some of our neighborhoods and do things like this is a big deal.
All of these volunteers, they're dedicating their Saturday morning, their resources, their love, their generosity, their kindness to help our neighbors out.
We are here painting the Boys and Girls Club, fixing fences, putting bark into yards, trimming trees, painting fire hydrants, all kinds of good stuff.
There's about 6 different locations. The teams are made up of young people and seniors and Rotary volunteers, city employees. So it's great to have a variety of people. We're having a great day helping out.
It was awe-inspiring. A lot of people here are from the community, born and raised, serving it as civil servants and residents come together and take their spare time to do something for someone else.
Thank you. Crystal, next slide, please. Let's Make a Difference Day was the first COV Connect event. COV Connect is a new service-driven program that aims to connect the city and our community. For this event, the goal was to enhance the neighborhood's quality of life. Next slide, please. Here are a few photos from the cleanup. The event was held on Saturday, October the 23rd from 7 a.m. until 1 p.m. Code enforcement started working on this event in August. We visited the neighborhoods multiple times by going door to door and speaking to residents and leaving information about the event. Police department staff and community development staff also assisted Code on these outreach days. Prior to the event, Code worked in the neighborhood on October the 15th and the 20th to demo fences, put in new fence posts with concrete, and sand a deck that needed to be stained. We also worked with a local contractor to remove some yard material, and Valley Falls Tree Service grinded a tree stump down, so we were prepared for the event. Next slide, please. Here is a map showing the houses in the neighborhood we worked on. The Boys and Girls Club is not shown on this map because they are located down the street. I'm happy to report that during the event, 3 additional residents requested assistance on their property. These residents were provided front yard landscaping, and 1 resident allowed the city to tow away a vehicle that had not moved in 20 years. Next slide, please. The day of the event, we had 83 volunteers, including city staff, fire explorers, local churches, service clubs, local businesses, and residents from the neighborhood and around the city come out to volunteer their time to give back to our community. We also had 6 paid staff from the fire department who worked on the event to make sure all of our projects got completed. Next slide, please. As you could tell from the map we showed you earlier, not all residents in the area decided to participate in the improvements that were made to the exterior of the homes, but several more homes did participate in removing trash from their properties during the event. Recology placed 5 dumpsters in the area so that residents can remove any trash they had inside and around their home. We were able to even help residents with appliance and tire removal. That day, we removed 23.21 tons of trash, and we had 1 inoperable vehicle removed. Next slide, please. During the event, we gave away or used 80 pumpkins that were all donated by Cool Patch. 60 of those pumpkins were given directly to the Boys and Girls Club. The remaining 20 were given to kids in the neighborhood that we were in. 95 fence boards, 2 yards of rock, 30 bags of rubber bark that was directly used for the Boys and Girls Club, 61 plants. 53 of these plants were actually donated by Everday, 32 yards of wood bark, and 23 gallons of paint. Next slide, please. I want to take a moment and thank all of the businesses listed for their contributions to this event. I also want to thank all city staff that volunteered prior to the event and on the day of the event, as well as all the volunteers from around the city and in the neighborhood. This event was successful because of all the help we received. Events like this and everyone who volunteered their time and hard work is what makes Vacaville such a great place to live. Next slide, please. That's all I have this evening. I can take any questions or comments that you might have.
Thank you so much for the presentation. The video was amazing, and I have Council Member Silva.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jill, for their presentation. Thank you, Corey, for putting that video together. Thank you to the fellow council members who were, able to show up, and really the impact. And I'm glad you kind of highlighted the additional folks that actually wanted to engage in it in different ways and have their needs addressed, have their yards, helped out. Even there, I would feel pretty confident that just about every single household there, except for one of them, participated, including neighboring houses. And just the last 2 weekends, again, when I kind of go around my jog around the area, I checked in with the residents there, and they're still out there, finding ways to clean up and maintain what was invested, and they still extend out their gratitude. And so again, I just want to extend out my appreciation for everybody who was able to participate. Again, I was a little skeptical on the overall impact, but it definitely was one of the highlights thus far in my first year on council. So thank you, Jill, particularly for your leadership. I'm a fan of Jill, so definitely appreciate the effort and love that you put into it, along with every single member who showed up. So appreciate it.
Councilmember Wiley.
I also wanted to say it was a great day to be out in Vacaville and see how we could pull together to help a lot of people. And the before and after shots were really great of the houses. It was a great event that day. It flowed really smoothly, but a real shout out to Jill and the rest of the planning team, because it takes an incredible amount of pre-planning to have the houses, the neighborhood, get all the supplies in order, the people in order. And there's nothing worse than going to help out and then standing around because no one's there to tell you what to do, or you don't have the things you need. So it just ran smoothly because of all the effort and organization ahead of time. So shout out to everyone who volunteered and to those who planned.
Councilmember Ritchie.
I just want to echo what Silva and Councilman Jeanette Wiley said. It was an amazing event, but, you know, kind of want to piggyback off what Silva talked about. There's a lot of houses that didn't kind of enlist our services to help clean up, but I think the effect really is them seeing the community come and rally behind them in the neighborhood. And even though they didn't allow us to help their house, they saw the community members of the city of Vacaville all over, not from their area, really reach out and take their time and effort to really help each other out. I think that effect, I think, is powerful to let the community know that we're all here together. And it was an amazing experience for me. I really told Silva, I actually spent a lot of time in the neighborhood growing as a kid. So it was amazing to be able to come back and give to the area streets and communities that I spent a lot of time hanging out and playing with. And it was really cool. It's great to be connected to the community and have the opportunity to give back. I would love to see this thing spread out through Vacaville and really show the whole city that we're all here for each other.
Thank you. And thank you, Jill, and your entire staff and everyone that came out. What a fantastic event. Thank you so much. We'll move to item 6, consent calendar. Does anybody want to pull anything off the consent calendar from the council?
This is Stockton. I want to pull I.
I, okay. Sullivan?
Sullivan, I want to pull H.
I and H, okay. We'll open it up to any attendees that would like to pull anything. I see no hands. I'm going to close that. I'm going to entertain motion besides I and H.
This is Stockton. I motion.
All right.
Hold on a second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
Yes. And I guess we'll start with H.
So thank you, Mayor Sullivan or Vice Mayor Sullivan. I pulled that. Sometimes we put items on the consent calendar that I think shouldn't necessarily be on the consent calendar just because it's something that I think city staff should be recognized for. And it's you know, we talk about problems and then all of a sudden there's immediate action. So talking with the city manager about the agenda, wondering if maybe he can give a quick overview on the item, just a quick 1 minute, just what this is for the public. And the backstory I want to give here is we had a caller, and we've actually got a couple of emails about some Parks and Rec wait lists and some issues with staffing. And as a parent who utilizes our Parks and Rec services and just really appreciates some of our part-time employees, they do so much. And you know, there's nothing probably more demanding than dealing with angry baseball parents. And so just real awesome, amazing employees that put up with a lot. And so again, we had a open comment about some wait lists and some issues because of staffing and not being able to get their kids into certain programs. And I just want to see if the city manager can give a quick, you know, once over on this item before we approve it. I just felt like it should get a little time in the sun before it rides off into the sunset.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. If it's okay, I'll give credit where credit's due and turn it over to Melody Ocampo or Carrie Walker from our Parks and Recreation Department to give you that quick update.
Hi, this is Melody Ocampo, Recreation Manager from Parks and Rec. Yes, thank you for just bringing light to this. It was our pleasure to be able to work with the finance and HR department to really take the opportunity to utilize some of our budget savings in order to increase wages for our part-time staff. It was, as you mentioned, a caller who brought it to the council's attention that not only are we short-staffed, and that is something that is being experienced by many agencies these days, but that, it really is important that we are competitive, not only within other park and rec departments, but really with some of our competitors that are local, fast food restaurants and the Vacaville Brendan Theater, things like that. So we really worked hard to kind of identify what we could afford to do and how we could raise those wages, not only with our after school programs, the TGIF program, but also in all our programs, so that we are ensuring that we are retaining quality staff and have the ability to be competitive and bring on new staff so that we don't have to turn people away. So we're really excited to get out there and get our recruitments going again with these higher wages so that we can get in some new staff members, get them trained, and continue to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open it up to public comment. I see none. I'm going to close public comment and entertain motion for H.
Sullivan on motion.
I'll
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Roberts. Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Yes.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Mayor Rolette.
Aye. And we'll move on to item I. Stockton?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. The reason why I wanted to pull I is because this decision is typically made under the COVID update at the end of the meeting, where we receive important information about the COVID-19 statistics and where we're at as far as the numbers are for whether or not the transmissions of COVID-19 are slowing or raising. I don't have that information because that's later in the meeting. And so I feel underprepared to be able to vote on this without those numbers. I think it should be where it was before when we got that COVID update so that we could make a more informed decision. And I guess my question for staff is, what metrics are we using to decide whether or not it is safe to open up meetings, and who's making that decision or recommendation to council?
Thank you, Councilmember Stockton. So as far as the location of this item, council, if they would like to, we can move it towards the end again. As far as the metrics that we're using, it's some of the same criteria that we've been using throughout this process, which is sponsored by the CDC. The most important one, that is the one that moves through the tier system, is the cases per 100,000, excuse me. And as we'll point out as part of that presentation, we are still not there yet. And so the mask mandate that we brought to council, and again, that mask mandate is exclusively for city facilities, is that, until we get into the lower criteria for a period of 3 consecutive weeks, the mask mandate will remain in effect. At that time, we believe that we will be able to bring back a recommendation to the council to move away from the virtual meetings, but that is up to the discretion of the council. This item before you tonight, item I, is the requirement of AB 361 that it must be renewed every 30 days. And so that's why we have this item back in front of the council again tonight.
Sure, and I understand that and appreciate that, your answer. I just feel like in order for us to really make an informed decision, it should be where it was before so that we have the statistical data to make a more informed decision in the future. I don't know what my colleagues think, but that's certainly what I think. Thank you for your time.
Mayor?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I must have been on mute. I thought I unmuted. Again, I'm going to open up public comment. I see no hands up for public comment. I'm going to close public comment, bring it back for motion, although I see Councilmember Silva's hands up now.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think, so if the question is what, or if the concern is what metric we're using, I think the city manager may have answered that. But if it's something that, again, Councilmember Stockton asked for our feedback, if it's something that we want to move to the after, I definitely respect that. So just trying to respond to Councilmember Stockton.
I'm going to entertain a motion. If someone wants to motion to pass it, let's pass it.
I'll like a motion to move it to the end, like Councilman Stockton said. So how do we do that?
I'm going to ask the city attorney. We agendized the item already for the agenda. Do we have can we motion to move something off the agenda now that we already approved the agenda as is?
Yes, I think under consideration of this item, you can vote to move it to the COVID update. I think that's acceptable.
Do we have to motion and accept it to move it, or should we just move it?
I would motion and accept it.
I have a motion to move it to, I don't have the item right in front of me right now, but to the COVID update. Do I have a second?
Stockton, I'll second it.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Rolette.
Aye. Okay, we will move on to item 7, business from the floor. This is time to address the council with issues that are not on the agenda, but within the council subject matter jurisdiction. And let's see if I have anybody on tonight. I see no hands. I'm going to close public comment and we will move on to item 8A, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This first public hearing is an item to allow testimony on the renewal of the Vacaville Tourism Marketing District Strategy and Levy of Assessments. Tim Patton, our Economic Development Manager, has a brief presentation for the council.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. This evening is another step in the renewal process of the Vacaville Tourism Marketing District. In 2017, City Council voted to establish the Vacaville Tourism Marketing District while disestablishing the Hotel Business Improvement District. The new district was created for a 5-year term, and we are now soon approaching the end of the 5 years. At the October 12, 2021 City Council meeting, Council approved Resolution 2021-089, which declared the City of Vacaville's intention to renew the Vacaville Tourism Marketing District. This was the first of 3 major steps in the renewal process of the Tourism Marketing District. Tonight is the second major step of the process, which is the opportunity for hoteliers and the public to comment on the proposed renewal process of the Vacaville Tourism Marketing District. No action will be taken this evening by City Council. Tonight is simply the opportunity for public comment. A third and final major step in the process will occur at the December 14th City Council meeting, where Council will vote on a resolution to renew the Vacaville Tourism Marketing District for a 10-year term, which would take effect on April 1st, 2022 and run until March 31st, 2032. Because this is a renewal process and not an establishment process, as it was in 2017, California law allows for a 10-year term for the Tourism Marketing District. At this point, I would like to turn to Melissa Reeves, President and CEO of Visit Vacaville, who will have a brief presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. Again, I'm Melissa Reeves, President and CEO of Visit Vacaville. And I appreciate your time tonight as we work through the process of renewing the Vacaville Tourism Marketing District, also known as Visit Vacaville. Next slide, please. Visit Vacaville is funded through a business improvement district that we call the Tourism Marketing District. That district is made up of 15 Vacaville hotels. According to the Property and Business Improvement District Law of 1994, the first management district plan allowed for a 5-year contract, and the second renewal can be renewed for 10 years, which is where we are now in this process. All 15 hotels in the city of Vacaville were notified by mail of the renewal, and most signed a petition approving the renewal for the 10-year term. 14 hotels are assessed at 3%, except for one hotel, which has less than 20 rooms and is assessed at 2%. We decided to do that during our initial 94 Act renewal 5 years ago. Just because of the nature of that particular property, we're not able to provide as much benefit for that particular property, and that's why that decision was made. Next slide, please. So here you can kind of see the key dates in this renewal process, where we started back in July. Development of the initial draft management district plan, which was done with our attorney Civitas out of Sacramento, and in conjunction with the city of Vacaville and the city's attorneys. And as Tim mentioned, we've been through a number of these steps in the process, and we'll hopefully conclude this at the December meeting with the new district beginning in April. Next slide. Thank you. So just a quick organizational overview. Visit Vacaville originally was established in 2004. The hotels in Vacaville came together to create a business improvement district to fund marketing activities. The initial district was a 2% assessment, and we raised in 2016. You all have been stuck with me since 2007, which is almost 14 years. So most of the time that Visit Vacaville has been in existence, I have organization. As I mentioned, there are currently 15 hotels in Vacaville with 3 additional properties approved and a 4th under review. Our Visit Vacaville team includes 5 total staff. That is myself, a director of marketing, a graphic designer, our community engagement manager, an office manager, and in addition, we have a contracted public relations manager. Next slide. So really quickly, just our responsibilities as an organization, primarily a promotional agency for the city of Vacaville. Our mandate is to fill hotel rooms and to increase hotel revenues and grow transient occupancy tax collections for the city. We really are a function of economic development. And, although we are primarily a promotional agency, our role has definitely evolved in the past few years. And we've actually updated our mission statement to kind of reflect those changes. Really, we're about enhancing the lives of our neighbors, to support our people at work within our community, and contribute to the creation of economic opportunity in Vacaville through brand development and promotion of the destination. Next slide. So again, as I mentioned, our organization and other destination marketing across the country really tried to change our mandates over the last number of years, realizing that for years and years, we were really known as just the promotional agency that advertised outside of our communities to bring people in, but we weren't doing a lot to support our local communities. And so we've tried to change that in the work that we do. We spend a lot of time focusing on building relationships within our community, new partnerships, and becoming what we call a community shared value within our industry, making sure that we are building on the quality of life in our community and raising the destination profile at the same time. Next slide. So last year, during COVID and the pandemic, we worked on a tourism recovery strategy. And here are some of those items that we were tasked with to help the tourism and hospitality industry recover from, all of the impacts of the COVID pandemic. So again, we're really working hard on rebuilding our marketing programs and getting people back into our hotels. We're doing a lot of work in the arts and culture space. We are creating new planning resources and trying to build for our future, additional items to bring people to Vacaville and additional reasons to come to Vacaville. We've been doing a lot of work on the job placement side. We definitely have had challenges in the hospitality industry, especially on the hotel and restaurant side, with being able to hire workers. And so we're doing whatever we can to assist our properties and our restaurants in that way. We've been strengthening all of our marketing programs, including trying to build on agriventure, our agritourism campaigns, and looking at other special event opportunities, again, just for other opportunities for people to come to our community. Next slide. And some of the promotional work that we're doing, again, visit Vacaville.com is kind of our main piece. We update that daily. We spend a lot of time making sure the content is always fresh and new. Of course, we're all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now TikTok as well. We do a lot of print and digital advertising, print marketing, event creation, things like our restaurant week, Arts Week, and our farm to table dinner, which we'll be so thrilled to bring back next year. We do a lot of community event promotion, support the hospitality industry. We started a podcast this year, and we've also built out a number of trails. We've got a new savings pass and an arts trail that we launched in September as part of Arts Week. Next. And again, thank you. I appreciate your patience as we've worked through this renewal process. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to public comment, and I see no public comment. Bring it back to the council, and I do see Councilmember Stockton. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for the wonderful presentation, Melissa. I know how hard you work and the span of the vastness of what you're trying to accomplish. I know that it's been said in the past that Vacaville is a community on the edge of urban sophistication. And it's really amazing to see how far we've come since articles like that have been written, and some of the strategies that we've been able to utilize through Visit Vacaville, the Chamber, the Downtown Business Association, in conjunction with city staff. So I just wanted to thank you for all of your hard work. I wanted to thank you and your team, and just ask you, what can council do, or the community come to expect from Visit Vacaville moving forward? Do you have anything in the works that wasn't mentioned?
Thank you, Councilman Stockton. I appreciate the kind words. And, yes, of course, we are always trying to advocate and build on Vacaville as a destination. We are working right now on an EDA grant for a destination master plan. It will be the largest project that we've ever undertaken if we're able to get the funds. And really that plan will help us plan and see Vacaville in a very holistic way as to how we need to grow the destination so that we're more resilient should, God forbid, we ever have any pandemic or anything else that impacts. We were also very heavily impacted by the LNU fires. So how do we make sure that our tourism industry is more resilient? And, is that through new facilities or, additional hotel properties, or what are those things? And so that plan will help us identify those. I think the thought that really tourism is something that we all need to work together to bring people to our community. Please, we hope all of you will ask all of your friends and family to come visit you here. Our success is the city's success. The transient occupancy tax that is collected by all guests staying in our hotels goes into your general fund. So it's really important, not only to us, but to you, I think, as well, to help build that general fund. So the faster and quicker that we can rebuild our hotels and our occupancy, the better for all. And hopefully that will help fund some larger scale facilities and projects that are tourism related going forward.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. You and your staff do a fantastic job. Thank you for all you do. We'll move to item 8B, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item is a revisitation of an ordinance related to electronic and paperless filing for Fair Political Practices Commission campaign disclosures. Our city clerk, Michelle Thornbrew, has an updated presentation for you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Before you tonight is consideration of a proposed council ordinance to allow electronic paperless filing of campaign and conflict of interest statements. Next slide, please. At your last council meeting, you reviewed a proposed ordinance that would mandate electronic filing of campaign reporting statements. At that meeting, the council unanimously requested that rather than mandate electronic filing, that the city be able to offer the ability to file campaign reporting statements electronically, and that proposed ordinance is up for your consideration tonight. Next slide. To implement an electronic filing system for campaign disclosure statements in accordance with FPPC's requirements, the council must adopt an ordinance that states that the city clerk will operate the electronic filing system in compliance with the requirements of Government Code Section 84615, including that the city designates the filings received electronically as the filing of record for the city, that the public will be able to view the filings, that the system will operate securely and effectively, that it will not place an undue burden on filers, and that there will be no cost to the filers. And it will include procedures for filers to comply with a requirement that they sign statements and reports under penalty of perjury. Next slide, please. To achieve the requirements of the FPPC for an electronic filing system, the city would implement a system that would provide the opportunity for electronic filing of campaign reporting statements that meets all the requirements of both the Secretary of State and the FPPC for electronic filing, including using data encryption for online filing, storing backup data at 3 locations for recovery in case of disaster, and retaining data for 10 years. Since there is also a component included for electronic filing of the Form 700 Statement of Economic Interests, staff is recommending that the council also include that these filings be allowed to be filed electronically. Next slide, please. The benefit of electronic systems is both for the filer and the city. For the filer, the system provides ease of use by having interactive instructions and guides as to what is required to be entered in each category while the filer is filling out the statement. At the last meeting, Councilmember Stockton asked if the system had a bilingual component. Staff researched this and found that none of the FPPC approved filing systems yet have a bilingual module, but the NetFile system does have bilingual technicians available through their helpline for assistance. Electronic systems save staff a considerable amount of time in the automating of processing, tracking, reviewing, redacting, and posting of statements as required by FPPC. Next slide, please. So given that the enactment of an electronic filing system will improve transparency, accuracy, efficiency, and save a considerable amount of staff time, the recommendation is for the council by title only to introduce the subject ordinance. Next slide. And at this point, I'm welcome to take any questions or receive any comments.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment on this? I see no hands. I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to entertain motion.
So Mike, so much. Thank you for bringing it back and being flexible. I move to motion approved.
This is Stockton. I second, and thank you for getting back to us on the different languages.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie? Councilmember Ritchie?
Sorry, yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Mayor Rowlett?
Yes. And item 8C has been tabled.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. We need to read the title.
Oh, I apologize. Go ahead.
Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Vacaville adding Chapter 2.66 to Title 2 of the Vacaville Municipal Code to allow electronic and paperless filing of fair political practices, commission campaign disclosure statements, and statements of economic interests.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. We have tabled item 8C and moved it to 9. I believe 9. I don't know. We have a long schedule today.
So, Mr. Mayor, actually, item 8C is being tabled, meaning not going to be addressed tonight on this agenda, but because we legally noticed the item, we had to go ahead and include it in tonight's agenda. So
yeah, it's a 9A. Thanks.
Correct. Thank you, sir. So item 9A is a resolution of the council to approve the sole source of traffic signal detection equipment. Gwen Owens, our city's traffic engineer, has a brief presentation for the council.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Before you is a resolution for the City Council to approve a sole source equipment for traffic signal detection equipment. Next slide, please. Okay, so back in November of 2018, the city was awarded approximately $2.5 million in grants to improve safety at 21 intersections. The improvements are specific to advanced vehicle detection, and the grant requires the installation and upgrade of specific vehicle detection. The equipment needs to be compatible with our existing system, and it additionally needs to perform well. Next slide, please. Here's a location map of the 21 intersections. You'll see we are looking at 21 intersections on both the Peabody and Alamo corridor. Next slide, please. So staff field tested Iteris and Econolite equipment. We actually had both of the equipment up at a specific intersection at different times to see how well they would work. Due to the way the detection housing unit is made, Econolite's product allowed for a more versatile placement, and it actually led to better detection. Additionally, the city's current video detection and the communication signal equipment are Econolite products. Next slide, please. So staff would like City Council to approve a sole source to Econolite for traffic signal detection because Econolite provided a better signal detection than Iteris. It's consistent with Municipal Code 2.68.300, which is standardization, which basically addresses repair and maintenance costs would be minimized by standardization, supplies and spare parts would be minimized, training of a repair would also be minimized. It's basically a cost savings. And then we've also talked to Econolite, and they are working on providing us a cost savings by directly purchasing from the vendor in bulk. Next slide. So by simple motion, staff is asking City Council to allow staff to sole source to Econolite for the purchase of the traffic signal detection equipment. And with that, I can answer any questions or comments.
Great, thank you. I'm going to open up public comment. I see no hands up. I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to the council, entertain motion. I see Councilmember Roberts. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I had a quick question. Regarding the 21 locations for these improved traffic signals, how are they decided upon? Because I mean, they're all on one side of town, but some of the lights are maybe a couple hundred feet apart, which doesn't kind of make sense for the dilemma, situation, reduction, what they're intended for. To me, it makes more sense to distribute them through the city for the high traffic collision intersections. So can you give some information on how those intersections were selected?
I can. So in 2017 and 2018, we participated with Solano Transportation Authority, who hired a consultant to evaluate a travel safety plan for the entire county, but they also had one specific to each agency. So as part of that, what the consultant did was they pulled all of our collision reports at intersections. And when we go after grant funding, it's competitive. So you have to have a benefit cost ratio. And so those two corridors were the ones that had the highest benefit cost ratio and gave us the best opportunity at grant funding. Now, let me touch briefly on what the dilemma zone is. What the dilemma zone is as a car approaches an intersection, sometimes you're in the situation of the light goes from green to yellow, and you either have to gun it and try and make it through the intersection before it turns red, or you actually slam on, brake and you potentially have a, issue of being rear-ended. So what the detection does is it determines where the car is located, what's the speed, how far it is from the intersection, and makes a calculation and determines whether or not the green time needs to be extended at that particular intersection. So what it does is it's in isolation, each intersection, and these intersections were chosen because they had the highest collision rate.
Okay, yeah, I saw that for the corridors. So like for the specific corridors like Alamo and Peabody, so that's pretty much every lighted intersection on those corridors. So does every light need that there? Or like, for example, I know there's quite a few fender benders near like Nut Tree or the outlet stores. I mean, even closer to the high schools as well, because high school students will gut it through lights probably more often than somebody on Leisure Town. So I was just wondering, does it have to be like every light on those corridors, or can we take a look at it and redistribute it to maybe one or two other intersections throughout the city for those other high collision ones? Because I assume not every single light on Alamo or Peabody is a high collision intersection.
So when we actually apply for the grant funding, we have to be specific to the location. So the grant funding is specifically tied to those two corridors. This grant funding was cycle 9. In cycle 10, we actually went to go look at different corridors to try and get additional money, but because the benefit cost ratio where Caltrans was looking was so high, we did not receive any grant funding. When cycle 11 comes through, we will also apply for other corridors. It really depends upon how competitive the other agencies are in comparison to our application, whether or not we can get money.
Okay, so in the future, we will be applying for additional funding for the other areas within the city?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Wiley.
Yes, thank you very much for this, and I'm glad that we will have this ability in Peabody and Alamo. And I asked this question of the city manager today, and then later today I got a question from one of the constituents. It was the exact same question, so there might be other people wondering also. So here's my question. Like at a light, it's going to determine what the traffic is and kind of modulate that. But like at Peabody Road, the people coming up from the base, it's kind of never ending traffic. So how do they determine, oh, now I'm going to change to yellow if there's continual traffic?
So what it does is it looks at cars platooning, and platooning is that they are kind of clumped together, and it will make a decision as to when is the safe time to actually turn. There's usually enough of a gap that it will be able to turn to from the major street of Peabody to one of the side streets. So it's an intelligent traffic signal that is able to immediately calculate this stuff and then readjust.
I see. And so then on the Peabody map, there's not that many lights there. There's the one coming by the CMF and then one further on down. But on the Alamo piece, as Councilmember Roberts said, there's quite a few stoplights. So do they try to sync those as well so that it helps the traffic flow because all those are synced?
So right now, the corridors are not, it's not a progression corridor. So each light is operating independently, because when you have like a corridor like Peabody and Alamo that comes together, it's kind of hard to determine, which one you want to give more time to. So we actually allow the traffic signal controller to actually make that decision depending upon how much traffic it has, which varies from time of day.
And so how long did you said that you kind of piloted, you tried both of them. So did you try them for like a couple of weeks, or like how long did you use them when they were in the trial period?
So what we did was we had each of the vendors put up their equipment. They actually had it up there for probably several days to a week. And what we did was we then asked them to provide us a presentation of how it worked. And one of the things that Econolite provides is we have both video and radar detection. Econolite, the two video and radar are housed differently, so you can place them at different locations, whether it's on the actual pole or the mast arm, and that helps for the actual detection. With Iteris, both of the video and the radar are in one unit, so it has to be located either on the mast arm or the pole, and it doesn't give you the flexibility.
All right, thank you very much.
Wiley, do you want to make motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve this.
Okay, do I have a second?
Stockton, I second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Mayor Rowett.
Aye. We'll move to 9B, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. These next few items are all associated with the revised East Main District project. Emily Cantu from our Housing and Community Services Department has a presentation for you.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Next slide, please, Crystal. Tonight, we are asking the City Council to approve several actions that will allow a new developer for the East Main District project development. This includes approving the purchase of 2 properties on Bush Street from the current developer, BAU, Bay Area Urban Development, to include in the East Main District project, and all the work products from BAU for the East Main District project. Also, an assignment of the current amended disposition and development agreement with BAU and ARDA to Lewis Land Development LLC, and a second amended restated DDA or SARDA with Lewis Land Developers LLC. And finally, authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute, implement, and make any minor modifications that are needed to complete the approved actions. Next slide, please. A little background on the project. In 2017 and 18, the City Council took action to approve a DDA, as mentioned, with BAU, and then an amended and restated DDA, ARDA, to allow a home builder, Ryder Homes, to come in as a partner developer with BAU. BAU remained the developer responsible for the retail component of the East Main District, Ryder as the home builder. BAU and Ryder together submitted the application for all of the land use entitlements to the city, and all of those entitlements were approved in September of 2018. In 2019, Ryder Homes had a change in staff and a new representative became the East Main District project manager. That new project manager spent some time reviewing the project and later contacted city staff about the feasibility of the project. Ryder Homes had identified a $3 million gap and chose to exit as the project home builder in March of 2020. BAU remained a committed partner and developer to the project and hired Cushman and Wakefield to market the residential portion of the project to find a new home builder. Despite the marketing efforts, a home builder had not been identified to build the residential portion of the project as it was envisioned by the City Council as established in the September 2018 project approvals. Next slide. Recently, staff were approached by 2 developers who were interested in development opportunities in the city. Staff did an on-site, along with other opportunities, staff met with them on site to talk about the East Main District project. Per direction in closed session of the City Council, staff began negotiations with Lewis Land Developers, LLC, Lewis. Those negotiations have now concluded. Lewis does have a strong development history. They were founded in 1955. They've developed more than 57,000 homes, 11,000 apartments, 19 million square feet of retail, office, and industrial. In Vacaville, Lewis constructed, owns, and manages the Sycamore Senior Apartments and also the Regency Shopping Center. Next slide. So tonight, council is being asked to consider approval of the following actions, or the listed agreements really, that will allow Lewis to replace BAU as the East Main District project developer. If approved, again, Lewis would be the developer responsible for all of the residential and also the retail components of the project. First, there is a purchase and sale agreement. This will allow the city to acquire 2 properties on Bush Street to include with the other city-owned properties as part of the East Main District project in the second amended and restated DDA, which we will discuss. The properties are adjacent to the city-owned parcels and are really integral to the project based on their location. Second, the bill of sale is recommended for approval. This will allow the city to purchase all of the documents and materials in connection with the East Main District project that were paid for and produced by BAU. The city can then use these materials as needed. Third, there's an assignment of the current amended and restated disposition and development agreement. This agreement would be executed by BAU, by Lewis, as well as the city, and it allows BAU to assign all of the rights and obligations in the current ARDA to Lewis. Once executed, BAU would no longer be a developer involved in the project, and Lewis will be the sole developer for the East Main District. Finally, a second amended and restated disposition and development agreement, a SARDA, is needed, and that's because Lewis is a new developer to the project, and some new deal points were negotiated with them for your consideration in this document. Next slide, please. So this slide lists the major deal points of the SARDA, some of which are that Lewis will complete the pre-construction work. Black Pine Communities will build the homes. The homes will be 3-story. That means tuck under parking with 2 stories of living space. Each home and also the retail mixed use component of the project will have a rooftop deck option. The project plans include walking paths, outdoor recreation areas, and sustainable building design. It's planned for a total of 81 for-sale townhome units with 3,000 square foot of retail mixed use. And that retail mixed use would be on Site 1, which is located at the southeast corner of East Main Street and Wilson Street. And while Lewis intends to begin construction as soon as all the applicable project approvals are received sometime next year, the SARDA provides a no later than date. So it provides that construction will commence no later than December 1st, 2023 for Site 1, with Site 2 and Site 3 construction to follow. Next slide. So what you have here is a recent illustrative site plan. It shows the layout of the homes, which are brown in color on the 3 sites, and the retail, which are the little red boxes on the East Main and Wilson corner. So again, Site 1 is planned to be constructed first. It's located along East Main Street. Site 2 to follow along Catherine Street up to Mason Street. And with Site 3 to then follow, located along McClellan Street, Bush, and Depot. Next slide, please. This is a recent image submitted of the Main Street homes. Next slide. And this is an image of the retail mixed use component on East Main and Wilson. Next slide. In order to enter into the SARDA and sell the property to Lewis to include with the for the East Main District project, 3 findings must be made by the City Council. One is that the proposed transfer is for the common benefit in accordance with Government Code Section 37350. Second is that the transfer of the property is in accordance with the SARTA and the price is not less than fair market value. And third, that the City Council as the planning agency must determine that the project conforms to and is consistent with the general plan land use element. Next slide. The amount requested this evening for this transaction is $750,000, which would be loaded into the former redevelopment agency bond proceed fund as a one-time expenditure. When 112 and 118 Bush Street are sold for the project, $600,000 would be returned to the fund to be spent on other eligible bond proceeds expenditures that would be approved by the council at a future meeting. Next slide, please. So that's the end of my presentation. Representatives of Lewis Land Developers, Black Pine Communities, and BAU are here along with me to answer any questions you may have. Before we move to questions, if it is okay with the mayor, Jeb Elmore, the Vice President of Lewis Plan Communities, would like to address the City Council. Thank
Sure,
you.
go ahead. Can you let him in?
Is Jeb available? There you go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Roulette. Thank you so much, and thank you, council members, for allowing me to speak tonight. Again, my name is Jeb Elmore with Lewis Plan Communities. I noticed my video is not working, but I promise I am here. I am also joined digitally here by Bill Melrup, also of Lewis Plan Communities, as well as Mike Paris, owner and our builder partner in Black Pine Communities. As Emily presented, Lewis Plan Communities started in Vacaville in 1972 with our Northern California headquarters, and are very excited to continue our 50-year legacy as one of the most active and largest developers in the entire county of Solano. We're very excited to be here today and want to affirm our acceptance of all the agreement language in front that is before you today, and certainly appreciate your consideration of the matter tonight. Upon our site visit, we immediately shared the city's vision for this property and are very honored with the opportunity to deliver what we envision as the most unique and innovative project in all of Solano County. We firmly believe the project will catalyze future reinvestment into downtown and offer new and different opportunities that are currently served in the downtown corridor. And we've also worked extensively with our immediate neighbors and will continue to collaborate with them throughout the process. With regards to the presentation, I also very much want to thank Emily Cantu for all of her hard work and efforts throughout this process. In addition, extend my gratitude towards City Manager Aaron Bush, Don Burris, and Payman Bevan, who've all been very helpful in this process. We wanted to bring the right team forward to be able to execute quickly, efficiently, and with high quality, as our plans certainly reflect. And that's what we've done by effectively coming to agreement with our builder partner to execute upon the build out of this community as soon as possible. Certainly, as Emily referred to, I'm available for any questions, and very much again appreciate your consideration tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm going to open it up public comment. I have one person on the phone. Alicia Minion, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just have a couple questions. And so I was reviewing a report that was written by the state controller several years ago, and it was their examination of the redevelopment agency. And on that was a list of properties that were deemed to be an unallowable transfer, specifically unallowable transfer from the redevelopment agency and then deeded to the city. On that list, there was 2 addresses on Bush Street, 106 and 130. And I was wondering, are those the properties that are fall under the city-owned, quote, East Main District project properties? I have that question. And then number 2, were the 112 and 118 Bush Street, were those originally purchased by redevelopment? And I was just curious, what was, if so, what was sort of the original plan for this site what was the purpose for redevelopment acquiring these sites if that's what they did? And then how is this new plan consistent? And then lastly, I was just curious, BAU, that particular entity, it's my understanding from the staff report, I guess you can pencil out this project. And I was just curious, what generally was the reason that they weren't able to carry the project out? Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Great. Fantastic questions. I'm going to close public comment and let the staff answer those questions.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Emily, Housing and Community Services Director again. Regarding the state controller report, I would, of course, need to look at the exact report you're looking at. But all of the properties that are part of the East Main District that are owned by the city of Vacaville were approved by the state to be transferred to the city. And they are under the city's purview at this time. Including 106 and 130 on Bush Street. So it was quite a lengthy back and forth process with the state, but all of these properties were approved. 112 and 118 Bush Street were not purchased by the redevelopment agency. Those were privately owned properties that BAU and Stuart Rickard purchased to be included in the East Main District project. And then responding to the question on BAU, it was kind of primarily market driven where the residential wasn't penciling out, but BAU stayed committed on the retail portion and knew that they could make that work with a good home builder partner. But with Lewis Homes coming in, has decided that, they're more than happy really that the project's going to move forward with Lewis and have partnered with the city to allow that to occur by transferring the existing agreement.
Great. Thank you very much for all those answers. Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a couple questions first. So in the contract it mentions minor amendments. What can we get some examples of that? Minor amendments as to the contract.
Yes, I can name a specific minor amendment. I just found a typo that instead of saying Lewis, it says Rickard. So I would want to change that before we close. So it could be something as simple as that. It could be, a minor change to a date or, sorry, not thinking.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, it wouldn't change the project or the major deal points that you're reviewing tonight at all.
All right, that's very helpful. Thank you. And then those two corner designated quote unquote red boxes, those would still be within the, I guess, the type of businesses of retail or some other type of entertainment type business.
Yeah, I'd be happy if Lewis wants to speak to the type of retail that they're pursuing right now.
Sure. This is Jeb Elmore again. Thank you very much, Councilmember Silva, for your question. Absolutely. We envision those retail to not only include neighborhood commercial retail elements that would serve for either entertainment, lifestyle, and or neighborhood service retail. We're certainly envisioning cafe space, those types of things. Also, in the event there is an upper floor that's enclosed, we may consider some flex space that would be of course, non-residential, but potential for added retail or potentially even office use. But most likely they will remain strictly neighborhood downtown level retail.
All right, thank you for adding that on. Yeah, I think, just overall, you mentioned that it was unique and innovative. I do agree with that. I'm really excited about the rooftop access, the multi-use ability, that was, highlighted, and just overall ability that I do firmly believe that it would be something that with this particular project success will transpire throughout our downtown. I know that's something that a lot of our residents aspire and keep speaking to, and I look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. One quick question. I absolutely love this project. I think this is great. I'm very excited about it. I think this will be the cornerstone of sort of the next phase of downtown, sort of like Councilmember Silva said, and I'm very excited for it. One question, I'm going way back in the memory banks, and Emily or Aaron, this might be for you. I remember way back when we looked at the first plan, there was a special request, and I apologize if this was covered and I missed it. From the Shabbat Center, there was some sort of like security right-of-way access issue that they were trying to potentially get some assistance with. Is that a non-issue now based on the new design? Has that been thought about? Is that no longer a problem? I just wanted to ask that really quick, but in general, very supportive of this project. I think it's just what downtown needs. And I love the design and style of the housing and the retail. But can you refresh my memory on the Shabbat issue?
Yes, this is Emily, again, the Housing and Community Services Director. Thank you for the question and the memory bump. But I'm happy to say that Lewis has already, as they briefly mentioned, they're meeting and talking with their neighbors, and they are working on a plan to address the issues that the Shabbat is having. And it sounds like they are definitely in agreement with them and will resolve any issues that are there in partnership with them.
Fantastic, thank you. Sounds great.
Richie.
Yeah, I just want to kind of echo Silva and Nolan. It's this great project. I mean, to highlight the complexity of kind of getting the task of doing infill projects is always a big issue, and the ability for this project to really come about. I had the opportunity to meet with the Lewis company, and there's an amazing group of developers and people and passionate. The properties they have back, we should really go by and look at the care they have in them. But I know the Shabbat Solano and Rabbi Zakos is absolutely elated to have this amazing development next to the Shabbat Solano. And this is really going to anchor that downtown and really kind of push our plan to make downtown Vacaville amazing, with Buckingham going across the street and the property going where the old Vacaville, remembers the old Vasco's Deli was there, and nothing has been there since. I think the project's amazing, and I really want to make sure that we kind of keep the momentum going, aim towards back downtown, and work on everything going from here to, Max and Fitness, and really make it special. But this is a great project.
Wiley?
When we talked about the ARPA funds last time, we talked about like downtown sewer issues and infrastructure. Was any of this infrastructure done for this area prior to when they were under the BAU, or does this require a whole lot of the sewer and things like that?
This is Emily again. Thank you, Councilmember Wiley. I appreciate the question about the infrastructure downtown. It can be a challenge in some areas, but you're correct. The city did go in prior to or about the same time as the contract with BAU, and resolved the sewer as well as water upgrades that were needed.
Okay, thanks.
I'll entertain motion.
I'm sorry,
Silva. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, this is Mike Silva, motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Yes.
Mayor Rolette?
Aye. We'll move to item 9C, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This next item is an update on an exciting new tool that our Community Development Department has called Open Counter. Payman Bhavan, our city planner, has a quick presentation for the City Council on this new feature.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. So the item before you tonight is an informational one on the Open Counter software. Next slide, please. So what is Open Counter? So Open Counter is a new zoning, permitting, and project information software. It was initially authorized by the City Council last October and formally launched this past September. The year that took for the launch was really staff working with Open Counter to provide a lot of detailed information on not only our fees, our processes, our permits, and land use information. Really, the primary purpose here is to help our customers find zoning and project information without having to come down to City Hall. As we described in the staff report, oftentimes we have folks who have questions about projects, but either are not confident in how they want to ask the questions or can't make it over to City Hall. So this definitely provides an opportunity for folks to get a lot of information without coming to City Hall offices. Next slide, please. So in terms of its benefits, it provides an alternative to visiting City Hall, as I just mentioned. It provides home-based resources and options for customers to check zoning, research project requirements, permit fee information, and really focus on community, which is the homeowners, contractors, real estate agents, and event organizers. Next slide, please. So we have two ways for folks to access the Permit Vacaville, the Open Counter portal. One of them is through the Community Development website, which is here. Next slide. And one is through the Permits tab on the main City of Vacaville website, which brings us down, and it's a little bit of an error. It's Permit Vacaville, which is just below the arrow. So there's two ways folks can access Open Counter. Next slide, please. Which connects them to this page, which has a different portals for Open Counter and Vacaville. One is the zoning, business, residential, and special events. Next slide, please. So this is just a brief video summarizing Open Counter, and I can answer some questions after it's done. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to open it up public comment.
I think there's going to be a video, but we can move on.
Oh, is there a video? I apologize.
That's okay.
Do we have the video running?
When residents set out to open a business, renovate a home, or host a special event, they're faced with complex requirements from the city. They need permits and licenses to get started, and their projects must conform to the building code, zoning code, and transportation and impact requirements. These regulations can be difficult for non-experts to understand, especially when city departments are spread out in different buildings, have different hours, or use different terminology and procedures. This complexity can cause applicants to miss important steps, which can lead to compliance issues down the road. That's why we built Open Counter. Open Counter is a modern permitting and licensing platform that streamlines citizens' interactions with local government. The software prompts applicants to enter their project details and shows them where their land use is allowed, which permits they will need, how much the permits will cost, and who will need to be on their team. When applicants are ready to move forward, they can submit and pay online and print their permits once they've been issued. This cuts down on trips to City Hall and reduces the workload of city staff. Open Counter has partnered with over 50 cities and towns across the country to streamline permitting and licensing and promote local economic development. To learn more about bringing Open Counter to your community, please contact us at hello@opencounter.com.
Okay, next slide. So that's a brief presentation. We do have some statistics on how things have been going since September 20th, if you'd like me to get into those details, but otherwise, that's my presentation. I can answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up public comment. I see no public comment. I'm going to close it and bring it back to the council if anybody has. And I do have Council Member Silva. Go ahead, Silva.
Just a quick comment. Thanks for the effort and trying to bring a lot more accessibility to our information. So I definitely appreciate these efforts. A motion to approve.
It's not. There's no motion. It's just information. That's okay.
It was
That's okay. Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, I was just curious. Is this information also available in other languages besides English?
It is right now with the package that the city purchased. We have one translation available. There's other ones that we can add on as we go on. Right now, what we're trying to see, so we've requested to add Spanish as a translation for the website. As we test this and see how it goes, we have the option to add a number of other languages for translations. But right now, we're trying to add Spanish.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. Great job. We'll move to 9D.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This next item is the first of our fiscal 2021 First quarter budget update. Ken Metzme, our Director of Finance, has a presentation for you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. As mentioned tonight, we'll be presenting the general fund year-end results for fiscal year 21, as well as an updated general fund revenues for the first quarter of the current fiscal year, which is the July through September timeframe. Next slide, please. So the following slide shows the fiscal year 21 results as we projected back in June during budget adoption and how the year actually ended, which is the column on the far right. Back in June, we anticipated that sales tax would finish the year about 10% higher than fiscal year 20 due to the new online sales tax law, AB 147, and the amount of online purchases being made during the pandemic. Parks and Rec revenues were expected to be our most impacted revenue source, as well as TOT revenue would be reduced due to the pandemic and subsequent state orders. Property tax revenue was also expected to be impacted, but not due to the pandemic, but the Chula Vista decision, which reduced our semi-annual residual balance payments from the county. Based on these assumptions, we projected non-Measure M general fund expenses to exceed revenues by about $500,000 or half of 1%, but the general fund overall to finish the year with an $8.8 million surplus or 60% reserve. Now that we have the actual ending results for fiscal year 21, this is what we've seen play out. Sales tax finished the year even better than projected, up 19%. This will be a recurring theme you will hear throughout tonight's presentation regarding sales tax. While the additional online sales tax revenue carried the city throughout the year, revenues from in-person sales, brick and mortar, also soared in the last quarter of fiscal year 21. For Parks and Rec, TOT, and our property tax revenues, they finished the year in line with what we assumed in June. The result, as shown in the last column of the table, was non-Measure M general fund revenues exceeding expenses by about $1.5 million, so a 2% swing from the June forecast, giving us a budget reserve of about $30 million or 32%, and the general fund overall finished the year $13 million in the positive, resulting in an overall general fund reserve of 64% of operating expenditures. Next slide, please. The next two slides will show how two of our largest general fund revenue sources, sales tax and Measure M, have tracked historically and how big of a year both categories had in fiscal year 2021. This first slide is on general sales tax. As mentioned in previous budget updates, we work with an outside consulting HGL on our sales tax projections. The chart on the left shows how sales tax has trended over the last 10 years. At the end of the trend line, you'll notice that there are two data points for fiscal year 21. The solid line is the amount that was projected back in June, a little under 24 million. And the dashed line is where we actually ended the year at 25.8 million or an 18.9% increase. Sales tax really outperformed expectations last year. If we go back 17 to 18 months ago, when we were putting the fiscal year 21 budget together during that first quarter of the pandemic, there was a lot of doom and gloom in the news on what may occur financially. And for sales tax, we entered the year projecting to come in under 19 million, and thankfully it finished well above that. As mentioned earlier, the state's implementation of the online sales tax law couldn't have come at a better time. And as stated on the last bullet point, the average growth in this category over the last 5 years prior to fiscal year 21 has been around 4% a year. Next slide, please. So for Measure M, similar to the explanation for general sales tax, the results are much better than anticipated, primarily due to the online sales tax revenue. Entering into the fiscal year, the projection was that Measure M would bring in slightly over 15 million due to the impact of the pandemic. The projection was increased to 18 million in June, and as shown on the chart, Measure M finished the year even higher than that at 20.4 million. As notated on the chart, the renewed Measure M sales tax went into effect in April of 2018, with the first full year of Measure M revenue under the new rate being fiscal year 19, which is why you see that huge jump from that year going forward. I'll now pass it to our budget analyst, John Collette, to go over first quarter revenues.
Thanks, Ken. This part of our presentation focuses on revenue trends through first quarter of the current fiscal year. The trends are based on actuals through the first 3 months of this fiscal year, along with updated sales tax estimates from our consultant HDL. Next slide. Sales tax accounts for approximately 20% of the city's general fund revenue. We have received $7.3 million in sales tax for the first quarter. This is an increase of approximately 17.7% or $1.1 million from this time last fiscal year. As mentioned in previous updates, a significant factor contributing to the increase in sales tax are the continued positive effects of AB 147, the Wayfair Act, an online sales tax law that went into effect at the end of fiscal year 1920. In addition, some key factors driving strong sales tax are a surge in consumer general goods spending. This includes apparel, home furnishings, and other general merchandise, reflecting a strong return to in-store shopping by consumers. Similarly, the return to in-person work, increase in travel, coupled with higher fuel prices, has significantly driven fuel and service station revenues. Vehicle purchases, receipts from auto sales have soared due to low financing rates, government stimulus payments, and a year of curtailed consumer spending due to the pandemic. Restaurant activity has increased by approximately 29% over last fiscal year, with quick service and casual dining leading the way. Next slide. Measure M is going to trend in the same direction as sales tax. Again, just to reiterate, Measure M is a 3/4 cent tax that was approved by voters and went into effect April 2018, with fiscal year 2019 being the first full year receiving Measure M revenue under the new rate. Measure M accounts for approximately 16% of the city's general fund revenue. Measure M revenue is $5.6 million through the first quarter, which is an increase of 24.4% over fiscal year 21. The factors for Measure M are similar to general sales tax, again, AB 147, the Wayfair Act, and general consumer spending back to pre-pandemic levels. Next slide. Other taxes besides property sales and Measure M taxes account for approximately 19% of the city's total general fund revenues. Through first quarter, revenues are $4.4 million, which is an increase of approximately 10% from the prior fiscal year. Taxes in this category consist of franchise tax fees, paramedic tax fees, transient occupancy tax fees, excise fees, business license fees, and real property transfer taxes. A couple of notable impacts seen through first quarter are real property transfer tax and the transient occupancy tax. Real property transfer tax is based on taxes derived from the selling or transferring of homes. This is an area where we continue to see positive results, which implies home sales transactions are still strong. Currently, after reviewing Q1, we are tracking 13% above fiscal year 21. The transient occupancy tax, or what we refer to as TOT, is a tax based on local hotel stays. We've seen an increase in revenue since we've had the ease of statewide restrictions due to the pandemic. Through the first quarter, TOT revenue has seen an increase of 79% as compared to the prior year, and an 11.4% increase if you compare quarter one of this year to quarter one of fiscal year 20, which is pre-pandemic. We expect to see the positive trend to continue as travel has opened back up. Next slide. The department charges and fees revenue category accounts for approximately 9% of the city's total general fund revenues. Through September, revenues are at $3 million for the current fiscal year, which is a 67% increase from last fiscal year and a 3% decrease from fiscal year 2019-20. So just under pandemic levels. This category contains the charges and fees for all departments, with Parks and Recreation and paramedic fees being the majority of the revenues in this category. Through first quarter, Parks and Recreation has begun to see positive impacts in their revenue as their activities and programs were directly impacted by the limitations from state and local mandates in the prior fiscal year. As we've analyzed actual revenues through first quarter, we've seen an increase of 309% in revenue as compared to the prior year, fiscal year 21. But if we compare the revenues for Parks and Rec to their 3-year average, it is still down about 13%. We are seeing increased activity in many programs through the first quarter, including aquatics, cultural arts, field rentals, youth services, and youth sports, just to name a few. And while we're seeing programs for outdoor activities strengthen, indoor activities continue to lag. Paramedic fees have seen an increase of 33% in revenue through the first quarter compared to prior year, fiscal year 21. This is due to the increasing number of ambulance transports by the fire department in the first 3 months of the current fiscal year. Paramedic fees continue to be a strength in this category as it has for the last couple of fiscal years. With most mandates from the state and county being lifted or eased, we expect revenues to continue to trend positively in department charges and fees. That concludes first quarter revenue trends. And from here, I will pass it over to Leslie for budget augmentations.
Next slide, please. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Budget augmentations are needed when items arise after budget adoption. Tonight, we have 3 augmentations for council's consideration, totaling $425,000. The first item on the list is a conversion of a current part-time media production coordinator position to full-time. With the work being done on strategic goal number 2, strengthen the local economy, and strategic goal number 5, promote community engagement and increase equity and inclusion, the media team is in high demand. It requires more availability than allowed with a non-full-time position. Converting this position would allow additional time to be spent on website update, redesign, marketing campaign assistance, social media content creation, messaging, as well as provide support to all the city departments and their communication and community engagement efforts. There is no additional budget being requested for tonight's conversion, as there is adequate one-time salary savings to cover the additional costs in this fiscal year. However, there will be an additional cost of approximately $64,000 annually in future years. The second item before you tonight is a replacement of 2 HVAC chiller compressor units for the PD, or the police department building, in the amount of $50,000. The compressor units have a typical lifespan of 15 years, and our current units are 20 years old and run year-round with no break in the winter, as you would typically see with residential air conditioning units. These units are well beyond their useful life and need replacement. This request aligns with strategic goal number 4, maintain effective and efficient services. The third item for council's consideration tonight is the policy directed one-time additional contribution to the OPEB trust in the amount of $375,000. This aligns with strategic goal number 4, initiative 4A, ensure fiscal sustainability. Next. As a reminder, the OPEB policy was adopted in 2015, and it states that when a fiscal year is closed out and the revenues have exceeded expenditures, the City Council will direct 25% of the excess towards a one-time payment to the CalPERS Employee Retire Benefit Trust. This is in addition to the full annual actuarially determined contribution. With non-Measure M general fund revenues exceeding expenditures by $1.5 million in fiscal year 21, the additional contribution is the $375,000. Now I'll pass this back to Gen to go over the 5-year forecast.
Next slide, please. Thanks, Leslie. As mentioned in previous updates, for the forecast, we worked with HDL on our 2 biggest revenue sources of the general fund, that's sales tax and property tax. And for our other revenue projections, we rely on discussion with internal departments on fee projections, external resources where available, and look at trends in the city's revenues from prior years. So the following list lists our assumptions used in this forecast. On the revenue side, the assumption is that COVID-19 impacts felt through fiscal year 2021, but the full business reopening occurs in the new fiscal year with no regression. That sales tax is going to remain relatively flat in fiscal year 21-22, the current one that we're in, because of this really strong fiscal year that we had previously. Going forward, HGL assumes a 3.7% annual growth seen in these subsequent years. For property tax, for fiscal year 21-22, we're factoring in an increase for the residual balance payment due to Genentech. So because the Genentech and county had settled on the property tax appeals that were on appeal for the last 10 years, we will get a one-time payment this year for that. And so the forecast factors in that estimate from the county. For Parks and Rec and TOT, these revenues are assumed to recover back to pre-pandemic levels in this current fiscal year. And then for the ARPA funding that was discussed at the last council meeting, that's been excluded from this forecast. On the expenditure side, for fiscal year 21-22, the expenditures are still based off the budget. Since we are still in the first quarter, we're not using actuals or trends at this point just because it's so early in the year. And so this would be revisited at the mid-year update. With the exception of the MOUs, so the labor contracts that are being considered this evening, and the budget augmentations that Leslie discussed a little bit earlier, those are factored into this forecast. For future years, there's a 2% personnel cost growth assumption. And then for CalPERS pension, the impact of the most recent valuation from CalPERS for fiscal year 20 of them, their investment earnings only being 4.7%, that's factored into this forecast as well. What isn't factored is the 21% investment earnings that CalPERS did see in 21. So that those numbers aren't projected in this forecast. And then for OPEB, the forecast assumes that we continue to fund the OPEB actuarial annual amount at the full 100% amount. And it doesn't include the 300+ thousand that Leslie mentioned as a budget augmentation. And then for services and supplies, there's a 2.5% growth assumption. And then for the capital funding that we deferred last fiscal year due to the pandemic, that has been restored and continues going forward. Next slide, please. So the following chart is our 5-year forecast through fiscal year 26. Taking into account the assumptions from the previous slide, I'll walk through the different elements and colors on this chart. So the blue column represents non-Measure M general fund expenditures and transfers out. And then the gray line represents non-Measure M general fund revenues and transfers in. So as mentioned earlier in the presentation, for fiscal year 21, non-Measure M revenues came in about 1.5 million or 1.5% better than expenses. And if we look over the next 5 years of the forecast from fiscal year 22 to 26, there's about a 3% gap projected between non-Measure M general fund revenues and expenses, with the gap closing to roughly 1.3% in the last fiscal year, that's fiscal year 26. So that's the gray line in the blue column. And then the orange portion of the columns, that represents Measure M expenditures and transfers out. So in fiscal year 21, we spent 8.7 million. And for the current fiscal year, that's fiscal year 22, the 18.6 million amount includes the community enhancement projects, 5-year pilot programs, and park improvements proposed as part of the fiscal year 22 budget process. And then for the outside years, so fiscal year 23 through 26, the Measure M spending assumption used for the forecast is that the ongoing staffing allocations and programs, including the community enhancement, district benefit, and pilot programs continue. We've assumed an additional annual $5 to $7 million in one-time projected funding that can be spent and still have total general fund expenditures in line with total general fund revenues, which is the orange line at the very top of the chart. So as additional Measure M funding priorities are determined through the development of the long-range Measure M financial plan, we would update the forecast to reflect that. And then finally, the blue line towards the middle of the chart, that represents the total general fund combined reserve, which ended fiscal year 21 at 62.6 million and is projected to end fiscal year 26 at 65.8 million. So the line stays flat from fiscal year 22 through 26 because under this scenario, total expenses, including Measure M, are in line with total revenue. So it's a balanced budget. Next slide, please. So the previous slide showed the forecasted revenue and expenditures. This slide shows the reserves back in June based off of the forecasted revenues at the time on the left and the updated projection of the reserves on the right. So back in June, we had projected at the end of fiscal year 21 for the budget reserve, that would be the portion of the general fund reserve, not including Measure M, to end the year at 30% with the combined reserve at 60%. And at the end of fiscal year 25, for the budget reserve to be 10% and combined reserve at 51%. The current forecast, which is on the right, has been updated to reflect the actual fiscal year 21 ending balances, which are 32% for the budget reserve and 64% for the combined reserve. And at the end of fiscal year 26, the projection is for the budget reserve to be at 10% and the general fund reserve to end at 53%. Our general fund policy is for the reserve to be in the range of 16 to 25% with a goal of 20%. So the general fund is above the policy level. Although there isn't a big difference between the two forecasts, the current forecast is slightly better than the June forecast, even when factoring in the fiscal impact of the proposed labor contracts, primarily because of the strength of sales tax. The updated sales tax projection that we received from HDL and that's been used in this forecast added approximately $3 million annually compared to the forecast in June. Next slide, please. This concludes this quarterly update, and we'd be happy to take questions.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to open it up public comment. I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. I see Councilmember Silva. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just thank you, Ken. Just quick clarification, and I think you mentioned at the end, the projections include the adjustments for the anticipated MOU?
That's correct. It includes the fiscal impact from the next item.
All right, thank you. That's all.
Sullivan?
No, I'm good. Never mind. Thanks, Mayor.
Would you want to make a motion, Vice Mayor?
I will make a motion.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Great. I got a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. We'll move to 9E, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This next item is memorandums of understanding and agreements for labor negotiation contracts with the city. Employees bargaining groups, Jessica Bose and Kim Matsumiya are here to make a presentation on this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Next slide, please, Crystal. For background, the following contracts and agreements expired on October 31st, 2021. Police Managers Association, Police Officers Association, the Managers Organization, City Employees Association, Local 39 Operating Engineers, and the Administrative Managers Group. The department head agreement also expired on October 31st, 2021. These contracts and agreements impact 469 of the 551 current full-time employees. The remaining 82 full-time employees are covered under the fire or fire managers agreements that expire 10/31 of 22. Next slide. The process we use during labor negotiations is driven by data, including comparable agencies or our competitors, the Consumer Price Index, which is currently 4.9%, recruitment and retention data that we obtain internally, union or group proposals that are presented to the negotiation team, and of course, the city's budget is reviewed and taken into consideration prior to recommendations being made to council. The negotiations team receives direction from council after the data is presented. The negotiations team is comprised of an outside professional negotiator, Eddie Kreisberg of Kreisberg Law. Mr. Kreisberg is available as a panelist on the meeting tonight. The other team members are myself, Director of HR, Ken Matsumiya, the Director of Finance, and Dimple Patel, the Employee Services Manager. I did want to make note that no internal staff participated in discussions or decisions regarding the department heads, the city attorney, or the city manager that are being presented tonight. The negotiations team meets with groups and keeps council updated throughout the process until total tentative agreements are reached. Next slide. During the process, the negotiation team meets with the groups and then reports back to council in closed session. This process repeats itself until the team reaches total tentative agreement with the groups. A total tentative agreement reflects the good faith efforts to put forward an agreement that both parties support and that will receive approval from respective constituents and from the city's governing body, which in our case is the City Council. Groups took votes of membership where required and reached ratification on the agreements proposed tonight. Feedback from the public and the council was received by staff, and the agreements are being presented as strike-through documents tonight. Following council approval, all track changes would be accepted, and the final documents would then be signed by the respective parties as stated on the signature pages. Then all agreements will be posted on the city's website. Next slide. While all details can be seen in the strike-through attachments, I will be covering the majority of them in this presentation. For all the groups, there's a 3-year term starting November 1st, 2021, going through October 31st of 2024. Cost of living adjustments of 4% effective the pay period including 11/1/21, 3% effective the pay period including 11/1/22, and 2% effective the pay period including 11/1/23. Citywide recognition of the Juneteenth holiday. And all of the above items would apply to the department head, city attorney, and city manager as well. Next slide. Cleanup items in most of the group documents that can be seen are the addition of PERS reportable language. This creates transparency to the public on PERS reportable items, clarity to employees, and consistency for payroll implementation and reporting. Clarification on cash out rates reflects current practice and federal wage requirements. The change of administrative services to human resources in many spots is due to the restructure of departments internally. Clarification of acting pay is to create consistency among the groups and compliance with PERS requirements. Clarification of the probationary period, again, creates consistency as well as clarification for departments and employees. Next slide. Now I'm going to cover items specific to individual groups, starting with the Police Officers Association. Equity adjustments in the amount of 1% each year, the pay periods including 11/1 of 21, 22, and 23. These are in addition to COLAs for a total of 5% in 21, 4% in 22, and 3% in 23. Increase in dispatcher post-certification pay. This increases the intermediate certificate from $1,860 to $2,400 per year. This impacts 3 employees. The advanced certification from $3,720 to $4,800 per year, and this impacts 4 employees currently. The addition of a rotating on-call pay for specified police officer positions at $85 per week per officer. There's 1 officer that will be assigned to on-call per unit per week, and there's 4 total units. So at any given time, there will be 4 employees on call. This is for the crime impact team, the investigative services team, special victims unit, and VICE. These detectives are assigned a day shift, but due to their expertise in their respective divisions, they are often called out evenings and weekends and are expected to be available. Another item is tuition reimbursement increase to match other groups, increasing it from the current $1,500 up to $2,000 per year. Next slide. Other items for the Police Managers Association, similar to the on-call pay for the detectives mentioned prior, the creation of on-call pay for sergeants assigned to those same 4 divisions in the amount of $5,720 per year per sergeant. This will impact 4 sergeants. The difference here is that the assignment does not rotate. Sergeants are called on to triage situations and then determine the best course of action and deploy the proper staff if needed. Another item for PMA is the acceleration of years of service required to qualify for leadership program for sergeants. This encourages and supports succession planning. Next slide. Other items for the Vacaville City Employees Association are equity adjustments for 24 classifications. These equity amounts range from 0.65% to 9.46% and are spread out over the term of the entire contract, and they are in addition to the COLAs. Every classification impacted is listed within the strike-through version of the agreement. And also an increase in bilingual pay from the current $1,200 to $1,800 per year. To begin receiving bilingual pay, it's required that the department head recognize the need in that position, and then the employee must pass a test administered by Human Resources. Next slide. Local 39, equity adjustments of 4% for all classifications spread over the term, and additional equity adjustments for 30 classifications ranging from 0.37 to 9.54% over the term. POA, Local 39, and VCA are all receiving equity adjustments to bring them more in line with market. Local 39 is also receiving an increase in callback minimum from 2 hours to 3, increase in shift differential from $1.75 to $2.50 an hour, an increase in safety allowances for boots from $250 to $300 a year, for clothing from $300 to $350 a year, and for pants from $300 to $350 a year. Next slide. Other items for the managers organization, are adjustments due to compaction. This is due to VCA and Local 39 equity adjustments that are in the same career ladder or tied in some way to VMO classifications. This impacts 14 classifications in VMO, ranging from 1.89% to 11.75% over the term of the agreement. Again, this is in addition to the COLAs. There's also an increase in vacation accrual for the communications supervisors and for the manager. This actually reinstates vacation accrual from previously assigned bargaining unit for the 4 supervisors and matches that accrual for the 1 manager. And finally, uniform allowance is being applied to the fire marshal classification. Next slide. For department heads, which includes the city attorney and city manager, there's an increase in the contribution to deferred compensation from 3% to 6%. This matches the VMO and AMG groups, which are the subordinate employees to these positions. This also requires an employee match to increase from the current 1% to 4%. Clarification of the existing annual vehicle allowance, which is $4,800 per year, again to match the VMO and AMG language. Also included for approval in open session tonight is a merit increase of 5% for the city attorney retroactive to August 1st, 2021. This is based on a performance evaluation that was completed at that time and is allowed for in the existing contract. Next slide. While labor negotiations and labor relations touch on several of the strategic plan goals and initiatives, the focus starts in 3 initiatives: 4A, 4B, and 4C. Ensure fiscal sustainability, rebuild city support services, and building a positive organizational culture and workforce. The successful completion of the process then impacts goals 1, 3, and 4 in Initiative 1A. Ensure public safety, manage changing paradigm for police, protect Vacaville's quality of life, and maintain effective and efficient services. Next slide. The fiscal impact of these agreements, as stated, is $16.6 million over the 3-year term. $10.4 million of that comes from the general fund. $2.2 million of the $10.4 million is for fiscal year 2021-22. The remainder of the funds come from various areas such as water, sewer, internal service, and special revenue. All the costs include roll-ups to reflect increase in pension normal cost where applicable. Completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Next slide, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm going to open it up public comment. I have one hand up. Alicia Minion, go ahead.
Hi, Alicia Minion. First, I wanted to thank staff and the council and the city manager and the city attorney's office, including the third party that was hired to assist with the MOUs and their negotiations. I see an incredible difference today in terms of process and documentation and transparency to the public. It's such a better process than, even 2 years ago. For example, I'll give you one example. It was the police MOU. It was May of 2019, and the resolution in May of 2019 that went before council, it said the council was approving the MOU, but there was not an MOU attached. Instead, it was just a very cryptic, brief kind of bullet point list of terms that were agreed to. And then later, we found out that many months later, the MOU was actually written many months after the council had approved that resolution that stated there was an MOU when there wasn't. And then when the MOU was written, it was backdated. And that just poses a lot of risk, including questioning the validity of the MOU. And also, there's no transparency. And I really want to compliment everyone for changing the process. It's so much better. Now, I have one question. The MOUs, I really appreciate the redlining. And there seems to be a clause that was inserted under many of the benefits, something that would say CalPERS makes the final determination of the reportable status of this pay. Currently, it is a PERS reportable under Section 571, or sometimes it would say it's, PERL and PERS reportable. Does that mean that it's compensation earnable, meaning it would be factored into the pension? That was one question I had.
Is that it?
There's one other comment. Sorry. There was lists of increases, percentage increases, and I really appreciated the footnote that was provided that provides clarity to the public that the increases and the salary comparisons did not include the retiree health benefit, including benefit tier 1 and 2. And I just think it's important that all the terms are all in one place, because not only is it transparent, but many cities use Vacaville.
Lisa, you need to wrap it up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say many cities use Vacaville as their own salary comp. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody's work on this. Thank you.
I'm glad you're happy. I see no other hands. We'll close public comment and then we'll answer, I believe, the one question.
Yes, Ms. Minion, thank you for your question. This is Jessica Bose. The PERS reportable language is meant to do just that, for transparency to the public, but also clarity to employees and the payroll system to know what items of pay are reportable to PERS as being factored into their pension formula. Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple quick comments. I just wanted to sort of echo some of the comments of the last speaker. I'm very proud of this round of negotiations and the outcomes on several fronts. And I just really wanted to thank the efforts of the negotiating team, our third-party negotiator, the bargaining groups, and all of the employees. I just thought it was a really great round of negotiations, and it just so much improvement from the last round from my perspective. I did specifically want to call out, and I hope that several of these employees in these classifications are listening tonight. We made equity adjustments to dozens, and by dozens, I mean multiple dozens of staff who have been left behind for far too long. So I'm just really proud of the work that we did and really proud of the work that the staff did, and happy that we could bring folks that have been left behind back up to par. And I also wanted to thank the staff for the procedural changes that were made. It took a lot of work to provide the full red lines. The detail was fantastic, much more transparent, and we're being responsive to concerns from the public. And I just, there were numerous improvements in this round, and I just am very grateful. And then lastly, the only request I have for the city manager, and we've talked about this a little bit before as well, it is a lot to review in a couple days. I think the whole packet tonight was probably north of 500 pages. So I like to read through the MOUs in totality, and I've been reading through them over the last 4 days since we've had the copies. But anything you could do in the future to get the council and the public a little more viewing time between, kind of rough draft, final draft, whatever you want to call it, and approval would be fantastic. An extra week or two next round would be great. But kudos to the team, and thank you to our staff.
Wiley. Councilmember Wiley.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay.
All right, thanks very much for the presentation. And I might have missed it, but I just wanted to say, in case someone else missed it too, that the other big difference here with this contracts are they went from 2-year term to a 3-year term. And I think that's a really big improvement. So we have an agreement for 3 years instead of the 2. I also really appreciated seeing the additional language under probationary period. So that was a great improvement. And I just wanted to have, can you say 1 or 2 things about what you meant at the very end when you said the cost include roll up? Because I didn't hear that before. So just explain that briefly. And then I will also mention that of all these agreements and salary increases, City Council doesn't fall under any of these groups, so that our $800 a month is not increased at all. And if we wanted to do that sometime, that would have to come at a separate meeting. So if you answer roll up, I would appreciate it.
Sure, this is Ken Matsumiya. Thanks for the question. So by roll-up costs, what we mean is that, for example, wages, if a 1% wage increase is given, it wouldn't just be an additional 1% cost to the city, because we would also have to pay what's called PERS normal costs. And so there are other these roll-up costs such as PERS and Medicare that they're based off of wages. And so if wage increases, then there's an additional cost right on top of like the 1% that's given. So that's what we mean by roll-up costs, and those are factored in as well.
Okay, I totally understand that. I just had not heard it referred to that as well. So thank you very much.
Vice Mayor, did you not put your hand down, or did you want to speak again?
I actually wanted to make a motion if that's appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. Jump in there.
I'd like him to make a motion to approve as stated.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Yep.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Rowland.
Aye. And before we move to the next item, I just want to thank all of our staff, all of our bargaining units. This was a very good process, and I'm just happy with everybody's performance and everybody that's worked so hard over the last year and a half, year and plus over this pandemic. So thank you, everyone. Let's move on to the next item, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This next item is a resolution of the council approving the implementation of a police hiring incentive program. Sandy Hess, our employee relations manager, has a brief presentation for the council.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Sandy Hess, and I am the employee relations manager for the city. Tonight, I bring before you a resolution to approve implementation of a police hiring incentive program designed to help improve the recruitment and retention of lateral and academy graduate police officers. I have with me tonight Acting Captain Chris Poland and our HR recruitment team lead for police analyst Regina Sickles. Next slide, please. Since January 2020, 29 sworn police officers has retired or resigned from the city of Vacaville. We have 2 additional officer retirements anticipated prior to the end of this year, which will bring us to a total of 31 lateral or academy graduate exits over the last 24-month period. Recruitment efforts during this same period have resulted in a total of 7 officers hired to lateral and academy graduate positions. While we continue to place trainee candidates into the police academy twice per year, we have a strong need to recruit and hire applicants that have already graduated an academy or who have worked as a police officer at another agency considered a lateral, as this is necessary to fill vacancies more quickly and to maintain a balance of knowledge and experience in the field. Next slide, please. Prior to 2016, the city of Vacaville had a steady influx of highly qualified and often very experienced police officer candidates anytime we opened a recruitment. Over the last 5 years, the candidate numbers have steadily declined, requiring that we actively recruit for police officers on a continuous basis. Multiple factors have affected the number of applicants we receive, including decreased interest in law enforcement as a career choice, and this is being seen nationwide, pension reform, and increased regional competition for candidates. A recent surge in police retirement has escalated our urgent need to fill vacancies. Throughout this period of declining applicants, we have continued to recruit with high standards and expectations for Vacaville officers. Our goals have not changed in this regard. Next slide, please. Over the last 18 months, we have adapted our recruitment efforts to try to meet this changing landscape and escalating hiring need. Our police recruiting team has visited police academies throughout the state in order to reach new candidates, including visits to 18 academies in just the last 3 months. The team has attended college and community recruitment events, implemented a dedicated hiring website, significantly increased the outreach and advertising budget, and have worked closely with human resources to develop a streamlined hiring process to attempt to move candidates as quickly as possible through the employment steps. The department has also revised policies related to tattoos and facial hair to reflect modern standards and meet the requests of current officers and potential applicants. However, the competition for a decreasing pool of candidates remains increasingly intense. Many agencies offer enhanced benefit programs coupled with hiring incentives and other perks. This hiring incentive program will give recruitment staff the ability to compete with other agencies when recruiting these more experienced, ideal candidates. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Acting Captain Chris Poland to talk about some of the things we're looking for in an ideal candidate.
Thank you, Sandy. Good morning, or good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. I just want to briefly talk about what we're looking for at the police department and what we're trying to recruit. The 2 to 5 year lateral police officer has always been very successful for us, and we would like to maintain that recruitment effort. What we found is they've been able to eliminate some of the rookie mistakes over the years and find their style of policing, and bringing that to Vacaville is still something that that we look for. We look for the relationship that any police officer has with our community, whether that's living in our community, coaching a team in our community, their parents living here, or their kids going to school here. What we found is we have a long-term commitment with that police officer. Seeking, a police officer who is seeking a career versus seeing this profession as a job. The integrity through actions is really important to us because it sets the stage of that high caliber policing that we're looking for in our city. And that's usually found through the background process and talking with previous coworkers, friends, schools, and previous employers. The ability to overcome adversity. This is a very challenging career in today's environment, and officers are often faced with the ability to overcome. We have to have the ability to overcome the obstacles, and so we're looking for people that can sustain a long-term career of 20 to 25 years, and the ability to overcome adversity helps with being able to do that. Communication style is very important to us. The friendly, approachable, engaging police officer. We always say in the interview process that a smile breaks down all the barriers. So we're looking for that police officer who can smile to whoever they contact. Team player, the team approach, being a good partner, being a good coworker, working with other city staff is very important to us. And lastly, just the public servant mentality, someone who's dedicating themselves to giving back, but also protecting this community at the same time. So that's our basic outline of what an ideal candidate looks like, and then I'll turn it over back to Sandy.
All right, next slide, please. In order to increase interest and gain a competitive edge in this recruitment market, staff have developed a proposed police hiring incentive program. This program should bring more initial interest in our police department and encourage new officers to stay in order to reap the full benefit of the program. Staff feels confident that after they are employed with the City of Vacaville Police Department for 3 years, most will continue their full careers with us. The incentive will apply to new academy graduate and lateral police officers only. The incentive is $20,000 per new hire, spread out over 4 payments. $5,000 at the time of hire, $5,000 at completion of probationary period, which for academy grads is 18 months and for lateral is 12 months. $5,000 at the completion of a 2nd year of service, and $5,000 at the completion of the 3rd year of service. We will be reviewing the success of this program on an ongoing basis. Next slide, please. The fiscal impact is up to $125,000, assuming we're able to hire 25 eligible officers during this fiscal year. And the funding source is the general fund. Next slide. This hiring incentive program follows the strategic plan goals and initiatives listed below. So goal 1, which is ensure public safety, and initiative 1A is manage changing paradigm for police that goes with that. Goal number 3, protect Vacaville's quality of life, and goal number 4, maintain effective and efficient services. Next slide, please. So this concludes my presentation. We're happy to take any questions or comments.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm going to open it up to public comment. I see one hand up. Marion?
Yes, good evening, council members. I would just like to say that I don't doubt that we need something like this. I realize that it's becoming more and more difficult to find good police officers and hire them. I just question the amounts. To me, I think they're a bit high. I looked at neighboring cities and they either don't have them or such as, for example, in the case of Fairfield, Fairfield is offering half of what we're offering. So 2,500 at each of those instead of 5,000. Could we not lower it, even if it's only by $1,000? Or what I would like to see is maybe less after the probation period and then get to the 5,000 at the 3-year period so that you kind of ensure or help to ensure that they do stay. Because hopefully at 3 years, if they're still there, they will decide that they like this department and stay. I also don't want somebody out there shopping that says, oh, well, Vacaville pays better than Vallejo or Fairfield or Dixon, so I'm going to Vacaville. And while that might net a good officer, it also might not. Somebody that's just shopping for the best deal for the first 3 years is maybe not who we're looking for. That's all.
Thank you. I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. And I see Councilmember Wiley first.
Yes, thanks very much for the presentation. I just have one clarification question. So you said this is for laterals and academy grads. So I know that sometimes Vacaville pays for people to go through the academy. So do we have a commitment from them once if we've paid for their academy?
So the people that we put through an academy, we consider them trainees. This program wouldn't apply to them because we pay for them to go through the academy and we pay them a salary while they're in the academy. They don't sign an employment contract that specifies a certain amount of time they have to stay with us.
Okay, well, I just wanted to be clear then that they wouldn't qualify for this so someone didn't say, oh, well, I'm a new hire, so I want to get this. Okay, thanks.
Correct. It does not apply to trainees. Mm-hmm.
Roberts?
Councilmember Wiley just asked one of the questions I was going to, if this apply to trainees or not. But yeah, since you pay for salary while they're at the academy, it makes sense. But it also makes sense to maybe get an appointment contract from them if you're dumping that money into them at the academy. Make sure they stick around for a little while. Yeah, due to prior potential conflict, I didn't take part in this process and coming up with the hiring incentives. Is there a reason why you want to divide it up over the years versus just waiting until after their 3rd or 4th year to make sure they stick around and reward them at that point? And on a similar topic, I know with the new hires, it's definitely hard, all public service, whether it's police, fire, teachers, military, National Guard, everybody's having a difficult time. But another important aspect is retention. Was there any considerations for doing similar types of incentives for retention of officers as well? Thank you.
When we designed this, we've looked at a few models that other agencies were using. We modeled it based on that. We also looked at dollar amounts that we were hoping would make us very competitive because we do have an urgent need to bring in more applicants at this time. Yeah, that was the general standard.
We're also looking at internal incentives that are not they're cost neutral to the department. So there's nothing against the city, but we're working on those additional incentives that allow for the retention within our organization.
Richie?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this program. It's funny, I'm going to kind of piggyback off Captain Poland's analogies of sports a little bit, but this incentive program's coming at a great time. It's enough has been said by all the council members and staff that this is a problem we're seeing across all of California and most major cities here and across the nation too. Like just trying to get good candidates, good employees, good staff, good police officers in this kind of really tumultuous time. I'm glad we approved the labor negotiations. I think everyone, all boats rise together. Everyone came up together, and that was really huge for the city. But like, and the kind of the theme of sports, you know, I think is really important. To the next step is we aim to kind of hire lateral officers, new officers to replenish the coffers, but also, you know, look at Vacaville and the police department as a team. We're an exceptional team. We have good players. No one's perfect, but it's really good, and we need to find a way to recruit. This is absolutely imperative. It's a sport. We're competitive. We have to go against other cities to get the best candidates to win. I think Vacaville, we owe the city to have the best officers on the street, to make sure that we have a winning team, to have exceptional service. You know, with this kind of dovetails to the next item. One of the biggest things we have to recruit is a new police chief. We have an exceptional chief and Joe Alio stepping in, but I hope this Senate program to hire laterals, new officers, also starts a conversation of us looking to hire a new police chief. And you know, Vacaville is a unique city. It's not just another city. We have something special here. 80% of the officers, as people have touched on, live in the city. They're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our teachers, coaches. They're people we see in the grocery stores. And that's really important. At my company here, I have this thing called the grocery store test. I make sure that everyone can do business and interact with their clients in a way in which you will not be embarrassed to see a client or person at a grocery store with your family and not expect a handshake or a hug. And I think that's something unique about Vacaville. A lot of our officers, they're in the community. They won't do things that will jeopardize their family in the community because they are part of the community. I just hope that we can kind of really look and see with our retention tools that Vacaville is special, and we need to do what we can to attract top tier talent, to keep it unique, and look kind of internally at someone that really understands Vacaville's values and has that kind of head coach mentality to take this team to the next level and really understands what Vacaville is from Vacaville and has that vested interest. You do things differently when you have to interact with a community that you actually live and reside in, because you will see them in your days off. And I think that's really important for this police officers we have on staff and looking for the next police chief. Being from the city of Vacaville, born and raised, or in our department, I really think we should give a first look there. There's exceptional officers probably applying all over the state, but I think having someone that really understands grassroots and the intimate dynamics of Vacaville is going to be important. I know I'm long-winded, but I think recruiting when it comes to sports, we got to get the best players, and I want to make sure that we do that. And where else we can do on top of this to recruit and try to bring officers to Vacaville. One of the passions, we didn't really touch on it, but the June 16th was a real big thing for me. I'm really proud of all the staff for recognizing the Juneteenth. That's really big. It shows that Vacaville is going the right direction, and we are acknowledging something that's pretty amazing for our community. But we can also look to do other things to recruit officers of color to the city. I think we need to think outside the box for recruiting and find a way to really attract officers of color that can come to Vacaville to really start to make this department look like the community. It's a great place. I think people need to find a way to know about it across California, and they'll come and they'll stay. I'm sorry for being long-winded, but I'm pretty passionate about it.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of Mr. Ritchie touched on a piece of this. Captain Pullen, just wanted to take this opportunity to sort of ask you, in addition to recruiting and finding that talent out there, what are we currently doing to ensure that we have a police force that's reflective of our community, or kind of diversify or community outreach? I know Sergeant Cardona has been doing a lot of wonderful stuff. Can you let us know kind of what's currently going on, or maybe what you have plans to do to sort of speak to the last piece of Councilmember Ritchie's comment and kind of my question about how do we not only attract top talent, but find, a diverse mix of talent for our police force?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It's a work in progress. It's challenging times to kind of meet the needs of our community, but I think starting 6 years ago when I took over hiring, we've made significant progress with HR and our recruitment efforts to kind of attract all areas of what a police officer looks like. I think we're doing a really good job of hiring female police officers. They've made a significant impact in our de-escalation using just their communication style. The Hispanic police officers that we've hired are really engaging into the 18 to 20% of our population. It's working out very well for us. They're feeling more confident in connecting with our Hispanic police officers based on their culture. We are struggling in recruiting African American police officers. We've tried different attempts, going to colleges, going to the campus recruitments. We've gone to career fairs. We've gone to the athletic directors. We've gone to churches in town, just asking for help in the recruitment and just trying to reach out, extend our hand, and show them that we're trying to invite them into our police department. So those are some of the areas that we're working on. It's still work in progress, but I have confidence in our recruitment team and with HR that we'll meet the needs.
Thank you, Captain Poole.
Stockton.
Yes, thank you. A couple questions because I know that there was quite a bit of discussion regarding the amount that we settled on for this recruitment incentive. I was wondering if Captain Poland might be able to explain the challenges with hiring lateral officers related to the fact that Vacaville has classic PERS members and PEPRA employees or PEPRA members, and not that middle tier of 3 at 55 that other agencies in our county have. And the other question that I have is probably for Mrs. Hess, related to the cost associated with hiring lateral officers versus trainees or entry level or non-academy grads versus the success rate. Can I get answers to those questions for the public?
This is Sandy Hess. I can talk a little bit about the cost. I don't have all the numbers right in front of me, but I can certainly get those for you. Trainees are pretty expensive because we do pay for them to go through the academy. We pay a salary to them while they're in the academy. That's a 6-month period. And then it's another year that they're in training. They're not really counted as part of our regular staffing. So it's quite, takes quite a long period of time to get a trainee ramped up to be able to be out there policing on their own, compared to a lateral, which may only need a 10 to 12 week FTO period before they're out policing. So cost-wise, the difference is pretty big. Trainees also, we do see trainees not always, making it either through the academy or when they initially hit the streets. It's sometimes not a career for them, and they realize that at some point early on in the process. So there is a little more risk involved when we hire trainees, and that's why we need a good balance of some trainees along with the laterals and academy grads as well.
So is it a safer or a more successful decision to hire a lateral versus a trainee? And is the savings more than $20,000 typically?
It is a safer bet to hire a lateral over a trainee. And the cost, okay, we're pulling up a couple of numbers here. Actually, Jessica, why don't you see it? I'm going to turn it over to Jessica here.
Hey, this is Jessica Bose. So a trainee from hire to deployment is about $72,000, and that takes 12 months at least. And then an academy grad takes about 6 months to get hired to deployment time, and that's about $42,000. And a lateral only takes a couple months because they come in with skills that they can be put through the field training officer program faster. And that only costs about $20,000 during that time period. So yes, it is a savings of more than $20,000 to answer your question.
Thank you. And Captain Paul, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll address the pension item as well. So we did tier pension prior to pension reform, and we tiered our safety groups from 3 at 50 down to 2 at 50. So when we were able to hire classic laterals, they would come in at 2 at 50. All of our current competitive agencies around us offer at least 3 at 50 for classics, so we can't really compete with that any longer. Our focus now is on PEPRA laterals. They're at the point now where they do have enough years of service in that they can come in and be deployed faster as a lateral. So that's where our focus is right now. We just don't feel like we should spend too much time on classic laterals at this point. But if there are some out there that want to come here, we're happy. But where our focus is right now is on the PEPRA lateral.
Okay, and those PEPRA laterals would have somewhere around 8 years of experience or less, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Silva.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone. So quick question, what are some reasons trainees don't work out? Quote unquote, don't work out.
Just some of the reasons sometimes they get into this job thinking it was something different than what it actually is. They get to the academy, they could fail out through tests, through scenarios, through a lot of different factors. They could be successful in the academy and graduate and then actually get into the street and realize this is a lot different than what they expected. So they either don't make it through the training process in the academy or through the training process, the field training program when they get to the police department.
Thank you, Sergeant Poland. So are there any ways that we have or any programs that we implement to help perhaps the applicants or potential officers that are going through that process to kind of get exposed to that beforehand, or ways that they can be, I guess, prepared for that?
Yeah, we have an amazing cadet program that's been in place for over 20 years, 25 years. We have, working with HR, we adopted a senior cadet program. So it's a transition from, the 14-year-old cadet to becoming an 18, 19-year-old senior cadet. And then hopefully that launches them in going to the police academy.
But an officer has to be 21 years old, correct?
Yes, sir.
So is there anything between that potential gap from 18 to 21, or even maybe older, mid, late 20s if they're looking to get into the profession?
That senior cadet program, and that actually kind of gets those people in that gap period when they leave the regular cadet program, but before they could go to the police academy.
I apologize. So what's the age group for senior cadets?
Like 18 to 21, approximately. Out of high school, college age.
And if someone was interested in beyond 21, what options would they have?
There is our trainee program where we start looking at putting them through the academy. And the academy also, the police academy that we send our folks to is the Sacramento Police Academy, and they do, it's called a pre-academy. It's a 1-month exposure to the trainees prior to actually entering into the academy itself to make sure this is what they want.
All right, thank you. So just a couple comments. A lot of the questions that were asked by my council members, I'm not going to go over those, but I spent a substantial time with a lot of our officers, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that entire experience. I think that one thing that you all have and this community has, and anybody that is aspiring to make a difference, you have my personal commitment to help advocate and help recruit different populations that, that we're actually talking about, folks that have diverse experiences, folks that come from different backgrounds. I got a whole neighborhood of kids aspiring and determined to find ways to make a difference. There's one thing that I know about quote unquote millennials that a lot of times get knocked in our society. It's the fact that they want to make a difference, and there's many different ways that we can make a difference. And being a public servant or a quote unquote guardian, I think that is absolutely one way. So with that said, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Aye. And before we move to the next item, I just want to say how much I appreciate our police department, the best police department by far, and everything they're doing and everything they're going to be doing. I just appreciate everything. Thank you, Captain Poland, for all what you've done. And I want to thank the council for working so hard on both of these last items. So thank you, council. It's been a pleasure working with you guys. We'll move on to the next item, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This is in keeping with our plan to bring the quarterly updates of the budget along with the strategic plan. Our Deputy City Manager, Georgianne Meggersmith, has an update on the strategic plan efforts.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Staff have been working hard on the strategic plan initiatives and the implementation strategies. So we have an update on those efforts for you tonight. Next slide. So a little bit of background for you. The final strategic plan was adopted in May of 2020. And in February 2021, the City Council study session was held to prioritize the strategic initiatives. And you also added at that time Goal 5, which is promote community engagement and increase equity and inclusion. Next slide. So the strategic plan updates, we are planning to bring them to you 3 times per year at least, in conjunction with the budget updates, which you heard earlier tonight. And as I mentioned, staff are working on many of the implementation strategies. So I'm going to provide a high level update for you tonight, but additional details can be found in the strategic plan update document that is included with the packet tonight, the agenda. Next slide. So for Initiative 2A, which is articulate a current economic development program, we have an implementation strategy that's implement COVID-19 economic recovery strategy, and we have a couple efforts happening on that front. We have the Shop Local Vacaville, which is a virtual marketplace, which is launching just in a week or so. The Manufacturing Retention Program is also launching this month, and then the COVID-19 economic recovery webpage and dashboard are now active. Next slide. Also, Initiative 2A, invest in proactive economic development strategies that capitalize on the city's strengths. Staff are working on a number of things, including working with a pharmaceutical company on a 250,000 square foot building. They're also in negotiations with a medical device manufacturer on 20 acres and a 100,000 square foot facility. And both of those are in the Vacaville Business Park policy plan area. And then staff are also preparing the next phase of the biotech and advanced manufacturing strategies. Next slide, please. Again, with Initiative 2A, develop a citywide business incentive plan that fosters economic diversification. The draft incentive plan is in process now and will be coming to council for review in January. And updates to the internal process of the development approval process have begun, and implementation of an improved development review process will occur in the second quarter of 2022. Next slide. So moving on to Initiative 4A, which is ensure fiscal sustainability. We will have an actuary present an update from the June 30, 2021 OPEB valuation at the next council meeting, which is December 14th. Finance will also be bringing a proposed general fund reserve policy update to council in the next quarter. And a consultant will be selected in the current month to conduct a water and sewer rate study, and that work is scheduled to begin in early 2022. Next slide. Also, Initiative 4A, continue to expand upon best practices used for budget transparency. As you heard tonight, Finance is providing quarterly updates on the budget to the council. We're also having the open budget portal revamped on the city website, and that is the portal that shows members of the public or anyone who wants to access that where the city's revenues come from and where all the expenditures go. And then Balancing Act, which is an interactive survey tool, I think we saw it at last council meeting. Finance Director Ken Matsumiya gave us a little demo, is scheduled to improve public engagement and will be utilized to garner input on the ARPA fund allocation. Next slide. Initiative 3A is Promote Housing for All, and EPS Inc. has been selected to prepare a comprehensive housing strategy, and public outreach meetings are scheduled to begin on that later this month. The housing element update work began last month, and then city-sponsored community meeting on the Green Tree project will take place before the end of the year. Next slide. Initiative 4C is Build a Positive Organizational Culture and Workforce, and COV Life, which is an internal employee, effort, continues to provide access and workshop and events to the staff and employees to help kind of build that culture. And then we heard earlier about the first COV Connect event, which was Let's Make a Difference Day on October 23rd. So I won't say much more about that, except it was an awesome event, and another one is scheduled for in the spring. Next slide. Initiative 2B is Manage Impacts from Growth. So related to updating the city's development impact fees, staff will be holding development and public meetings in the next several months on that. Related to the city's Park and Rec Master Plan, agreements for the Measure M Park improvement projects that were approved as part of the current budget process are in process now. And so we are looking forward to seeing all the good work that's going to come from those. Examine neighborhood equity of parks. Staff anticipates hearing the status of the Prop 68 grant award before the end of the calendar year. And interested residents that participated in some of the Trower Park project, some of the grant outreach opportunities, were invited to join the Trower Park project steering committee. Next slide, please. Also, Initiative 2B, Manage Impacts from Growth, ensuring the city has up-to-date infrastructure master plans. Final updates to the water infrastructure master plan and sewer infrastructure master plan are expected to be completed in early 2022. And the city was awarded an Economic Development Administration, or EDA, grant for $187,000 to develop a broadband or fiber master plan. And Magellan Advisors was selected as the consultant to prepare the plan, which will start next month and will be completed in September 2022. Next slide. And finally, on Initiative 2B, Manage Impacts from Growth, leverage the use or sale of city-owned surplus property. At the last City Council meeting, 22 properties were presented to the Council for consideration of that surplus property declaration. Council did give staff some direction, and staff will be reviewing the properties for potential future uses and will present those findings to Council at a future meeting. Next slide. Initiative 6A, manage changing paradigms for police. Develop and implement a public safety strategic plan. OAR Group was selected for the comprehensive police department audit, and that audit actually began yesterday. So it's just getting off the ground, and we'll be bringing back more information on that as it moves forward. Next slide. Initiative 1B, manage the increasing call volumes for fire and EMS. Consider opportunities to improve the city's emergency management, including targeted efforts in wildfire preparedness and response. The Ready, Set, Go wildfire preparedness program has been adopted, and the department has begun educating the community. And I think we all know there was a lot of illegal fireworks happening this past
July. And so stricter enforcement of illegal fireworks is being considered now, and a proposal will be presented to council at a future meeting. Next slide. Initiative 4B, Rebuild City Support Services. So I'm sure you all know we do have a new enterprise resource planning system, and the third and final phase, which is utility billing, successfully went live in September. And so all three phases are live, and we're just kind of working through those kinks of just the first year and year-end processes. So all of that is in process. And then staff continue to utilize the contract management module, which allows for tracking, transparency, and document storage. And we didn't have that before, so that is a great new piece of the ERP system. Next slide, please. Goal 5, which was added at that February council meeting. So this one wasn't prioritized yet. And so it's promote community engagement and increase equity and inclusion. So to do that, one of those strategies is to create and implement a comprehensive community engagement plan to enhance public dialogue and trust between the organization and the community. And so I am very happy to report that a new public relations manager will join the city on November 22nd and will begin development of the community engagement plan. And so you'll see a press release coming in the next week on the new public relations manager. And then Nicole Anderson and Associates Consulting will be facilitating a council study session on equity, diversity, and inclusion that was rescheduled from October to January 26, 2022. Next slide. And so just next steps, we will continue our efforts on the strategic initiatives highlighted in the presentation and any that weren't in there. And so we'll just continue to develop action plans for each implementation strategy, including resources needed, funding parameters, and scheduling. And then the next update is planned for February or March of 2022, again, in conjunction with the budget update. And next slide. And so it was an informational item only, and I am happy to answer any questions or take any comments that you might have.
Great. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm going to open up public comment. I see no public comment. I'll bring it back to the council for comment. I see Vice Mayor Sullivan. Go ahead, sir.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to make a comment on the process and just commend the city manager and staff. I mean, the strategic planning process we've been going through now for the last, 8 months to a year has been just a night and day improvement. And it's just really nice to see kind of the precision focus and the progress we're making and the resource alignment. So I'm really happy with this direction. And I just wanted to just throw a shout out to the city manager as well as all the staff working on this. It's exactly how a strategic plan should work for a city. It is strategic, and it's making a difference. So thank you to staff.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, and great overview of the progress and all the efforts that everyone's been contributing towards. Just 2 quick items. Number one, just some feedback. It's the first time I'm hearing about a steering committee for Char Park. Anything that goes on in our districts, I think I'd really like to see, make sure that there's maybe a more direct effort to let us know what's going on. Love to help get the word out to make sure that the engagement's being implemented. And then number 2, I'm not, so you guys can correct me if I'm out of line on this particular item, but I would like to make a motion. Is that possible, actually, or I can wait till the city council?
This was informational only.
Okay, so I'll wait.
You can wait till close. To council comment.
I'm done now. Thank you.
We'll move to 9H, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This last item is consideration and direction on the preparation of a policy regarding the appointment process for members of city commissions or council district. Once again, our Deputy City Manager, Georgianne Eggersmith, has a report for the council.
Hello again. So tonight we wanted to provide some potential options for changes to the appointment process for city commissions. This item is informational only, and while there's no action required, we are seeking your input and direction. Next slide, please. So as cities across the state have been transitioning from an at-large to a by-district election process, many cities have also been adopting policies that provide for council member involvement in the appointment process. Also, Vacaville City Council members have also expressed interest in a process that allows for their involvement and provides for district representation on each commission. Next slide. So there are currently 2 city commissions that are active and included in the Vacaville Municipal Code, the Planning Commission and the Parks and Recreation Commission. And the current appointment process is also described in the Vacaville Municipal Code. And it basically says that members of the commission shall be appointed by the mayor with approval of the city council. And this process is specifically outlined in the California Governmental Code and cannot be changed. Next slide. So the council can choose, though, to make changes to the process for the commission appointment while still following the California Government Code through updates to the city council policies and procedures manual. Currently, the policy is the same as what's included in the municipal code, which is that the mayor appoints the commission members with the council approval. The council policies and procedures manual does not provide really any other details on the appointment process. And so we are looking for council direction on expanding the appointment process by adding some specifics to the timing of the appointments, the council member nomination process, and the commissioner terms. So starting with the timing, one consideration would be to establish an application, interview, and nomination process that results in the mayor appointment and council approval no later than the first city council meeting in March. And this timing would allow for planning commissioners to be appointed in time to participate in the annual Planning Commissioners Academy that takes place in mid-March. Next slide. So historically, the mayor and the vice mayor have reviewed the commission applications and interviewed the qualified applicants, and the mayor would then nominate the selected applicants followed by council approval. We are proposing 2 possible processes for the nomination process. And the first would be an at-large nomination process where each council member would independently review applications and interview candidates of their choice. Each council member would then make a nomination to the mayor to consider for appointment. At a public meeting, the mayor would then make the commission appointments subject to the approval by the council. The other option is a by-district nomination process, which is essentially the same process, but then council members would only interview and nominate eligible applicants from their district. Next slide. The third policy for consideration is the commissioner terms. One option is to have them remain staggered 2-year terms where the mayor and council members from even number districts would nominate commissioners at the beginning of the first and third years of their term, and council members from the odd numbered districts would nominate commissioners upon the commencement of the second and fourth year of their term. The other option is to change the terms from 2 years to 4 years and have them run concurrently with the term of the nominating council member. This option would require an ordinance amendment for the Parks and Rec Commission. Next slide, please. So the recommendation is that you review the proposed policy options and provide direction to staff. Next slide. And again, I'm open to questions or comments, and the city attorney and the city clerk are also on board and willing to answer any questions as well.
Thank you so much. I'll open it up public comment. I see one hand, Mary Vasquez, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Good evening, council members, vice mayor, mayor. Tonight, I'd like to speak to you as a community member and also just raise some concerns and questions about some of the information just being presented for your consideration. I would say overall, I am in favor of nominations by district, but do have some concerns about how it's outlined and maybe just more questions about the details of the process that don't seem to be outlined here. I do believe that districted commissions like the city council can provide more diversity of perspective and understanding of their respective communities, especially when it comes to each respective commission's charge. Currently, there are 7 members on each commission, but in neither of the proposals does it list if the membership number is changing. And if not, does that seventh member then, is that appointed by the mayor to maybe an at-large member? But neither appointment process outlines that. Another question, there's really not any kind of explanation on how either process really provides any checks and balances or objectivity throughout the process, meaning each member will have the sole authority to select and nominate before council. And so it just kind of seems like it's lacking a little bit of kind of like a secondary assessment of candidates if only one council member is selected to interview and then nominate before council. Also, either process really doesn't outline what an actual nomination process looks like, especially presenting before council. So I would encourage you all to consider or incorporate some sort of short presentation at council of the nominating member, like why this candidate, and what relevant experience are they bringing to the commission, and what perspective may they be bringing to the commission. I was also kind of hoping that this process would outline a little bit more about the application and interview process. I think that there are opportunities to potentially move the application online, make it more accessible, potentially create a database of applicants that the city could maintain and make accessible to council members for when there are vacancies, like midterm vacancies, or when commissioners are terming out, then they have a database of applicants. For the interview process, I would encourage that council members utilize the same interview questions to identify candidates for nomination. As of now, it's not really clear if council members determine the interview process and then develop it themselves.
Mary, I need to wrap up.
Okay, and how it would be equitable across council member to council member. But just hopefully giving you all a couple things to think about. I'd also encourage some sort of marketing plan to engage and get folks involved in the commissions. Thank you all.
Mary. Have a good night. I see no other hands. I'm going to close public comment and come back to Councilmember Robert.
Yeah, thank you. I just have a decent amount to say on this one. So yeah, look at the recommendations, and one thing I'd like to possibly consider is kind of a hybrid of the options that you presented before us, with the district nomination and that large nomination. So what I'm thinking is kind of whoever wants to apply, go through your respective council member for almost like a pre-screening application nomination process. Then after that, the council member can bring those to the council, whether it's one or a few, however many apply, if they meet qualifications and kind of in sync with that council member. And then once all the council members had the opportunity to get applicants from their districts, then bring it to the council. And I'd like to see it more open to the public. So possibly agendizing the interviews on the council meetings themselves, so the applicants can come before the council and the entire council can interview all the applicants, and then do possibly ranked choice voting, and the highest ranked candidates from all the districts would then go to the mayor and vice mayor for potential appointment, and then come back to the council for ratification. In terms of the commissioner terms, I do like the staggered terms because that would eliminate a lot of new commissioners at the same time. If they're staggered, kind of spaces out when you have new persons coming on the different commissions. I know this particularly pertains to the commissions, but I also like this to be extended out to the committees as well, such as the Arts Advisory, and have it all go through the council in the same or similar process. Let's see. Yeah, so that's my general thoughts on it is a hybrid of the two, going to the council members first, and then us nominating several or however many apply if they meet the criteria to go on to be interviewed by the council as a whole. Then, yeah, be ranked and weighted for the mayor and vice mayor to take a look for appointments. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Hey, Mayor, can we go back to the slide with the options, please? Crystal, option slide if we can.
I think that's slide 5, Crystal.
Thank you. Here we go. This one's good. So I have a couple thoughts and some comments. So the first comment I have is that district representation is not just about geography. Sometimes it's subject matter based, and sometimes that subject matter expert doesn't live in your district. And in some cases, we have districts where candidates don't step up. So I don't necessarily like the idea of narrowing things down to by district. I think depending on your priorities for planning or your priorities for parks and recreation, there may be a key participant or a subject matter expert that lives in another district that would bring value to what you're trying to accomplish in your own district. So I think that we would be limiting ourselves if we narrowed it down to by district. I do, the more public the process, the better. I remember when we were appointing a vacant council seat, we had public interviews, public applications, everything was public. It was grueling, it was tiring, but it was very transparent, it was very open, and it was for the public to see. And so something in that fashion, you know, sort of like Councilman Roberts just mentioned, would really satisfy kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something as in the public spotlight as possible. The Mary Vasquez had a really good question. The 7th seat, and staff didn't really answer that. Do we envision the 7th seat is going to be at large? Because the mayor's at large, is that the general idea?
That is correct.
Okay, great. And then she also made some comments, and Jason touched on these comments too, that the devil's sort of in the details, right? So the interview process, assuming we'll give you guys the broad direction to, you know, tonight, say go north or go south or whatever, and we'll get back some sort of interview process policy that we can kind of look through and kind of go through, because that will deviate, you know, or could change a lot of the intentions that we had from the vote tonight. So I'm assuming that if we give you general direction tonight, city manager, you'd be coming back at some point in time with a policy or procedure, or some more granular points. Is that an accurate assumption?
Yes, that's correct. We were just looking for kind of the broad brushstrokes on this particular issue with the direction, and then we do have ideas, and we'll absolutely bring back to council more of the details.
Okay. And I like Councilmember Roberts' suggestion about the ranked choice. We used that on the school board when I was on there, and that worked very well. I think that's a smart way to get consensus of a group. And it also encourages, you know, professional respect amongst council members and districts. The 2 to 4 years is kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about that until it was brought up a few minutes ago. Commissions sometimes are kind of like your first foray into public life or public politics, and 4 years is a pretty deep commitment. I'm sort of leaning towards 2 years, but I don't have a compelling, super strong opinion on that. 4 years just seems like kind of a lot. And sometimes with commissioners, you know, I don't know. It just seems like 4 might be a bit much, but I don't feel super strong about that either way, I guess. I do like the staggered though, for whatever reason. I don't necessarily have a good valid reason for that. I just, when you have a whole new class and a whole new class, you sort of have the potential to lose some of your senior members who can bring along your newer members, or you kind of lose that fresh energy in that year 4. So I do like the staggered group. And per Jason Roberts, or Councilman Roberts' suggestion as well, I am also concerned about the advisory commissions and then special work groups. There's a lot of power and authority that can be vested to these groups as well. And so I'm assuming that whatever direction we give tonight will sort of also trickle down to those special groups. I know we're waiting for the Measure M group, and there's a lot of interest from council on that, on who gets to be on that or who doesn't, and what commissioners. So I think we also need to suss that out after we have the finer points for the commissions. But overall, I am in favor of a at-large appointment that each district representative would sort of somehow make, but it doesn't have to be in their district per se. I like the ranked choice. The interview process and policy is very important for me. I prefer 2 years, but I'm not super stuck on that. I like staggered, and again, the advisory commissions and special work groups is something that I also would hope would be considered in the policy or procedure. Those are my comments.
Stockton?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I personally, I don't want to do a rank and file or council ranked, I want to make sure that the my constituents in District 1 have every opportunity to be involved in both of these commissions. So I would like to be involved in that process. That being said, I like the 2-year terms that run congruent with the district election, so that way it's on the same sheet of music with a new council member being elected or staying in office. They're allowed to have some say in who they would be working with these commissions. And I have some concerns about this being done publicly, only because I could see it taking a long amount of time, or we're going to sacrifice the ability to really ask some in-depth questions that you can get in a 30-minute or 20 to 30-minute interview that you couldn't do in like a 3 to 5 minute interview if you do them all, during a council meeting or something like that. So I would prefer that, maybe with the mayor, each council member would interview people of their from their district or of their choosing, if that's what other district council members would like to do with the mayor. And then that way we could choose who we think will represent our districts or have a say in who represents our districts the most. That's it. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiley.
I appreciate the opportunity to give feedback tonight. I also, I really like the fact that we are in districts, but for this appointment, I'm not stuck on that there has to be one from each district, because I do think that could eliminate some of the expertise that we have in the city of Vacaville. Like when I was looking at the planning commission applications for the last go around, we did get to see all the applications. I could easily have picked 2 from my district that would have been excellent candidates. So I think that, some district might have 2, some might have 1, some might have none. I think we just need to look at all the applicants that we have. So I did like that opportunity to say, okay, let's look at all of them in our district and put that forward, and then put a couple forward and then look at that pool and then see what we have out of that. I do think a 2-year term would be better than a 4-year term, but I don't know, is there a limit right now to term limits so that, someone could serve 3 2-year terms or is there a limit right now? I do think that it would be good to have that second round of public meetings so people could see that as well. If we don't do that, we do certainly need to give information at the council meeting so people know who the commissioners are being considered. If we do have our district council people doing the first round of interviewing, I certainly agree that we need to have a uniform set of questions and understanding so that there's uniformity in that selection process. And then I just want to clarify, when the last people got appointed, they were just up for 1-year term. So we would be looking at all 7 seats on both the Planning Commission and the Parks and Rec Commission would be up for either reappointment or a new person in that position. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thanks.
Okay, Roberts again. Roberts, did you want to go again?
Yeah. Hey, sorry, I forgot to unmute. Yeah, Councilmember's talking to bring up a point where, longer in-depth interviews would be beneficial. So possibly doing initial interview with the mayor yourself, the council member for that district, and possibly one of the city staff, like city manager, deputy city manager, to look at these applicants. And then before appointment, once it gets narrowed down to a handful of people, then the smaller group of final applicants or a second interview come to council, be available for questions by the entire council. would, I think, be a good process for that one. And as Councilmember Wiley just brought up, I would like to see, as it's related to this somewhat, is term limits for these commissions as well. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, did you want to go again?
Yeah, one more quick comment, Mayor. Thank you. Sorry, this is a really good, thought compelling process. So I wanted to chime in really quick. Councilman Stockton, I liked kind of where he was headed with the council member and the mayor interview, kind of the first cut of folks either from their district or not, depending on the applications. I liked how Roberts sort of added on to that, where there'd be kind of a second session where maybe they come present their suggested appointment to council, and then we ratify as a group based on the mayor's appointment at that council meeting with the opportunity for public questions. I think that was a good add-on. And I wanted to also note that I appreciated the context about the term limits piece. I think that probably is important and to some degrees should be implemented. I think the other thing for staff to consider in a policy or the next cut is, what do we do when there's a vacancy? And that's happened a couple times since we've been on. And Ms. Vasquez had a question about kind of the ongoing applicant database. Like, is your application live indefinitely? Is there a time frame? We do have vacancies periodically. So I just wanted to kind of add on to their proposals, add my support, because I thought that was a good idea and a good compromise. And then, yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Silva.
Yeah, thank you. So just real quick, I like the staggered 2-year appointment process. Open to exploring different options for term limits. Would like to make this a easy process as possible. So just personally, I would love to consider people personally, ideally from within that district, although those more than likely probably boundaries might be changing, and then outside the district. But in the end, we want to make sure that we have qualified folks there, and but also bring a different voice and perspective to that process. So that's all. Thanks.
Stockton.
Yes, yeah, sorry, I was unmuting. The only reason why I'm concerned about the consistency of questions is just because each district has different needs and has different interests, and so I worry about there being limited on what we can ask people that we want to represent our districts. I don't know if anyone has moved, but my understanding is that the Planning Commission, the 7 people that are on the Planning Commission right now, there are 4 people from District 1, there are 2 people from District 2, 1 person from District 4, and currently no representation in Districts 3 and 5. And then on the Parks and Recs Commission, and unless somebody's moved, it would appear as though there are 4 people in District 1, 1 person in District 2, and 2 people in District 5, no one in District 3 or 4. So I do think that we have to, really be careful about how we balance these commissions. Our city elected to go to district elections. And so I'm concerned about an at-large attitude on these commissions, which is another avenue and opportunity for constituents to reach out to somebody that has some say in the quality of life in the community that they live in, the district they live in, and the city that they live in. So those are my final comments. I'm interested to see what staff brings back.
I was trying to let everyone speak, but everybody keeps going again. So actually, I'm gonna jump in. I think I was the only council member that sat through multiple meetings where we were deciding whether we were going to go district or not be a district. And the public spoke and said they wanted us to be a district. We did that for multiple reasons. We wanted to be inclusive, diverse. We wanted our districts to be represented. And a lot of people got up and said that they were not represented in their district. So there's no way that I'm going to vote for us to say, yeah, that doesn't matter anymore. I want to do it at large. We're switching
this style because we want to make sure that everyone's getting a voice in their area. And then I hear people tonight saying, well, I don't want anybody from my area, or someone's going to be better from another area. And we don't need to have 4 people from one area. We went to districts because the public spoke. The public wanted districts. And so I want to keep to that. If there's nobody from that district that ends up running for a commission, then we could put some kind of verbiage that then at that point we can go to at large. I don't think it's earth shattering that if no one runs from that district, then we can't get anybody from that district. Then we go to an at large position. I like the idea of the mayor and each district sitting down with the people from their district, making sure that they're representing their district. I think that's how it should be. I think that's what the people wanted. I think we need to stick to 2 years. And I'll tell you why. I've done a lot of these interviews over the years, and we get a better pool of people because they don't think they're going to be on the hook for 4 years. So I think the 2 years is good because then you can continue to give them another 2 years. If they're serving you correctly in your district and they're doing a good job, you can give them the 4 year. So I would be only apt to stick to districts. If there wasn't anybody from that district that was going to run, then we can put verbiage in there that would say that then it would roll over to an at-large. That way we can make sure that we're getting persons represented, all 7. I think that we need to stagger it, make sure that we're doing the same thing we're doing right now, 4 and 3. And then the last thing is the information, and I think Mary made a great comment. However, there's people that run, or excuse me, that apply for these positions. And then what happens is something comes up in life and then they don't want to be on there. If there is a vacancy, I think that we look back into that district, wherever that vacancy is, and we reach back out. We could reach back out to people that have applied before, but holding on to a bunch of stuff and making the staff do more work, I don't think is productive. I think at the time, if there's a vacancy, we open it back up again. And we just need to continue to do a better job at making sure that each district, if there's a vacancy, we get it out to the folks in that district and let them know what's going on. I think we would lean heavy on whatever council member represents that district and make sure that they get the word out. And that's where I'm going to stick. That's where I'd like to see this council go. And with that, I'm going to move back to, looks like everybody lowered their hand. Okay. So did you get enough information, staff, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, we did. Thank you to all the council for their feedback tonight. We will be compiling all that and bringing it back to you very quickly so that we can go ahead and begin implementation and get the application process going.
Great. Let's move to the next item.
Thank you. So we will start with the COVID update from our Fire Chief, Chris Conception. And don't forget, we brought the AB 361 discussion as part of this item immediately following. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Fire Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Next slide, please, Crystal. Go ahead and give you the latest numbers. California is at about 4.7 million cases, an increase of almost 80,000 over from the last time we had a council meeting 2 weeks ago. Deaths are at almost 72,000, increase of 816 from almost 2 weeks ago. The 7-day positivity is unfortunately trending in the wrong direction, just slightly in the wrong direction. That is, it's going up. It's at 2.3% statewide. In Solano County, there's 46,000, as of today, 46,082 cases, an increase of 579. The active cases, there's been an increase, or there are more active cases today as there was 2 weeks ago, unfortunately. Fortunately, though, the number of people hospitalized has been reduced by 2 to 34. There have been no deaths in the last 2 weeks, so that's good news. In Solano County, according to the state, our 7-day positivity is trending in the right direction. It's going down. It's at 1.9% right now. And in Vacaville, 12,128 cases to date, increase of 178 over the last 2 weeks. Next slide, please, Crystal. As far as the current status, nationwide, the Delta variant still is making its mark on the country, highly contagious, impacting both unvaccinated and vaccinated people. The state of emergency remains in effect. And then the county remains in what we call the substantial tier. And we're at 8.5 cases per 100,000. 2 weeks ago, we were at 7.1 cases per 100,000. So this is unfortunately trending in the wrong direction. We are trying to get down into the moderate transmission tier, which is 6 cases per 100,000. So we're still a couple or 2.5 cases per 100,000 above that number right now. And just as a reminder, the mask mandate and the reason that we continue to have meetings virtually is because we're still in the substantial tier, and the mask mandate still is going to be in place until we are in that moderate transmission tier for at least 3 consecutive weeks. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the city attorney for your consideration of the renewal of the resolution for virtual meetings.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. I apologize we don't have any slides for this item since it was continued from consent, but just briefly, as you know, AB 361 modifies the Brown Act to allow for remote meetings when there is a declared state of emergency and when the city council determines that conditions exist that continue to directly impact the ability to meet safely in person. And to Council Member Stockton's earlier question, some of the metrics we look at to help the council make that determination are the numbers that the chief just went over about the status of the virus in Solano County. So we know there was an increase of 579 cases. We currently have 332 active cases, 34 hospitalizations. There has been an increase of 178 cases in Vacaville. We remain as a county in the substantial tier of the CDC guidelines. And when we're in the substantial tier, the CDC does recommend that all individuals, regardless of vaccination status, continue to wear masks while inside public places. And as the chief mentioned, the Delta variant continues to kind of be running a little bit rampant in the community. So those are the metrics that we use. Originally, the council made the findings that were required for the remote meetings back on October 5th. Those findings need to be renewed every 30 days in order to keep the remote meeting potential available. So that was also actually renewed at your last October meeting. That renewal runs through November 25th. However, we do have a Parks and Rec Commission meeting on December 1st. So for them to meet remotely, we are asking the council to consider renewing the resolution allowing remote meetings tonight. And that's the information I have.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to open it up public comment if there's any public comment. I see no public comment. I'll bring it back to the council for comment. I see Councilmember Wiley. Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve this.
And this is I. Is that correct? Is that what we're approving?
It is 6I.
Okay. Okay, so 6I is motion for approval. Is there a second?
Sullivan.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton?
No.
Councilmember Ritchie?
No.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. Okay, we'll move to Mr. City Manager, item 10.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have any reports tonight, but I would just like to echo the sentiments and thank the council for your support tonight with the approval of the labor contracts. As we shared with you tonight, an update on the budget and the strategic plan. A lot of great work is being done, and that's directly related to all the work of our hardworking employees here. So I appreciate the council's recognition and support of all their efforts, and we look forward to continuing to do even more great things for this organization and this wonderful community. So thank you for your support tonight.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, and thank you for everything you've done. We will move to reports of City Council. Anybody from the City Council want to speak tonight? I see a few hands up. Vice Mayor, go ahead.
A quick report out on the school district 3x3s. Councilmember Stockton, Councilmember Silva, and myself. We've now had 2, maybe 3 meetings with a few of the school board members. We're trying our best to repair relationships and kind of have a fresh start and move forward in a positive direction. And so far, it's been good. We've got a couple key talking points that we're really kind of trying to work on. And we're still a long ways off, but we're collaboratively trying to move forward. And so we're actively trying to partner and figure out how to build new schools for our shared families. And then we're also trying to talk about some of the traffic issues around our local schools and campuses that are just, it's just crazy. You know, some of the traffic in the mornings and the afternoons. So we'll bring more back to the council as we have more to report, but so far so good. Look forward to continuing to meet with them, and we'll bring back some items to council hopefully soon. Thanks.
Thanks for the report, Vice Mayor. Roberts?
Yeah, I just want to report out that this past weekend, November 6th, we had our first District 5 quarterly town hall meeting. We had really good turnout and got a lot of good conversation going. I'd like to thank the city manager and deputy city manager on answering a whole bunch of questions that came up during the open forum portion of the town hall meeting. We also had some good staff representation. Fire Marshal Childers was there, answered a lot of questions on ordinance and code enforcement throughout the city and the process on doing that. She did a great job and answered quite a few questions from the city itself. Then Sergeant Crystal Chugo was there to discuss the new district commander program that the city recently stood up with the PD. And he was able to answer a lot of questions by the community to him about the program and different aspects and processes for getting non-emergency stuff taken care of by the PD. So big thanks to those two for taking the time out of their day to come out. City Clerk Michelle Thornbrew came out and discussed a new potential redistricting because of the census that came through last year or this past year, and discuss how that may affect and change with the city. I'd also like to thank all the staff that helped get this together. Mostly Rika, Sheila, and Carson that worked on the back end to get this taken care of. One of the big things that I asked the community to get involved with is the district funds that we currently have going out. So maybe some other council members may want to do something similar. Was I put it out where I asked them to email me over the next couple of weeks on ideas and thoughts that they had for how they'd like that money spent in the district. And on a second item, is this appropriate time to agendize an item for a later council meeting? Mayor, City Manager?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us what you want to do, and I'll tell you if we're gonna throw it in a motion.
Okay, this is what I brought up a couple council meetings ago was getting a biotech update / 3-5-year roadmap presented to the council and the public so we can see the progress and the ideas and goals of not just the city, but the CBC and possibly one of the companies that we're already looking at coming into Vacaville.
Yeah, I don't think you need a motion for that. We've discussed that, and the city manager's getting ready to bring that back to us anyway.
Okay, I just want to get a more set date so I knew when it was coming, and so the public knows when that item is coming up.
So we actually included that in tonight's presentation with the strategic plan update that we're looking to come back to the council in the first part of next year, either in January or February.
Okay. Well, then that's all I had. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert. Wiley?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on a few things. We talk often about downtown and downtown improvement, and I just wanted to report that downtown was alive and bustling on Halloween. There were tons of people down there, and it was very well organized, and with the both the merchants and the downtown association, and people had a great time on Halloween downtown. And then also this past weekend with the holidays, and there were over 100 vendors, so that was a great event and a lot of people downtown. I've attended a couple of chamber events with the mixer and welcoming new businesses, so that's great. I did a ride along with Sergeant Cardona and the crew group this week, and that was great to see how they work with people who are currently houseless and trying to get them out of temporary shelters into something more long-term. Upcoming things I have is the Yolo Solana Air Quality meets tomorrow. The Vacaville Dixon Greenbelt meets tomorrow. I have a meeting with the neighborhood watch group in my neighborhood, and they're a real successful neighborhood watch, and they have questions about the city and want to share their information as well. And as Councilmember Roberts had his town hall, my town hall is scheduled for a week from tonight, next Tuesday at 6 p.m. And it's going to be at a polling place. We don't have very many businesses or places in District 6. So we are going to meet at the polling place, the Covenant Community Church, which is on kind of the corner of Leisure Town and Alamo. And I hope that we have a good crowd of people from District 6 and anyone else who wants to come and to be informed and to share their voice. So thank you very much.
Silva.
Yes, thank you. Just the trick-or-treat event downtown was amazing. Trunk or treat at Markham Elementary School was out there. Thank Vacaville PD for engaging our kids and our families out there. Another announcement just to the public, please go to VacavilleChristmasWish.org, VacavilleChristmasWish.org. You can, if you're a family that might be looking at some, trying to get some help to make sure you bring some extra smiles to your kids face this particular Christmas, you can sign your child up. Right now, there's at least 500 families that have enrolled in this Christmas Wish program. And so likewise, if anybody's looking to help out and perhaps sponsor a family or with, what they can within their means, definitely reach out and connect to the Family Resource Center. Want to thank California Medical Facility. So I'm on their advisory committee. They actually help raise funds and donated funds to Fairmont Elementary School and then Ernest Kimmy Rapp program. And on top of that, they're going to take a hefty effort and try to do a toy drive for the kids at Markham Elementary. So there's a lot of other great work that they're doing. So I just want to give my appreciation to them. The other thing is Town Hall for myself will be on December 9th at the Senior Center. So looking forward to engaging the community on that. One thing that's kind of come up with that is the need for a Spanish speaker or somebody to provide Spanish, translational services. It's something that, a council member kind of brought up in a couple of different points about having Spanish as, being accessible, or the software being accessible in Spanish. And then our goal number 5 to promote community engagement, diversity and inclusion. I really think that we would benefit tremendously if we had someone from the community, not necessarily that maybe can pass these tests that, from what I hear, are sometimes an obstruction for those who are more conversational with being able to connect to the Spanish community. So what I'm motioning is that we put on the agenda to where we actually hire a staff member that would be that liaison. I can't be the only district representative. I can't be the only council member that has Spanish speaking constituents. I'm trying to make sure that we have someone from city staff to communicate with. I understand the rationale why it should come from the district funds. But again, I think this is a community value, and on top of that, the ability, so this particular person can also again engage not just within the public to help guide them and connect them to different services, to where they have our staff who also may be bilingual, but they can also help engage our business community as well. So,
Councilmember, if you want a motion, why don't you motion to bring back the information, but not motion to hire? So if you could say, form your motion to say, bring some information back, what it would look like, so that then the council can give direction on what we'd like to see. I think that would be the better motion.
I would like to motion that staff bring back a proposal to bring on a possibility of bringing on a staff member that would be a liaison within the particularly Spanish-speaking community.
This is Stockton. I'll second his motion.
I'm going to ask the city attorney, are we within our guidelines? Are we doing right? I think we are, but I just don't want to.
Yes, you can agendize that for a future meeting for discussion and further direction.
Just for discussion. Okay, perfect. I have a motion and second to bring it back for an agenda item to discuss it. I'll have a roll call.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Oh, yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. Okay, so now we have Stockton, Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A couple things. Vice Mayor Sullivan and I have continued to work on a regionalized homeless effort to bring navigation centers and work with county resources to try to help our homeless population here in Vacaville as well as throughout the county. And I was notified today through an email, I believe it was today, that Benicia has also joined us, and Fairfield, Vallejo, and Sassoon. So very excited to see, some of the larger cities within Solano County coming together to try to do something impactful. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was that Councilwoman Wiley, Councilmember Ritchie, and I had the opportunity to send off 3 of Vacaville PD's finest on their retirements, and was an incredible showing for their walkout or their last call from the police department. So I wanted to wish Detective Drew Dalton, as well as Chuck and Julie Bailey, well in their retirements. Their contributions to the city of Vacaville are far too many to talk about in the limited amount of time that I have now. But I think to the folks that know them, we recognize that we're losing some incredible people. They've certainly earned the best of luck and life with their retirement, and I wish them well. It was pretty incredible showing of people. There was a flyover. I mean, it was really an amazing way to honor these folks and their dedication to our community. So I just wanted to wish them well in their retirement and thank everybody that showed up to send them off.
Councilmember Stockton, thank you very much. Yeah, we lost a lot of good officers in just the last few months, and obviously they completely deserve their retirement. But a lot of institutional knowledge, a lot of great police officers no longer on our force, and a lot of big shoes to fill. So thank you for bringing that up. I really do appreciate that. The last thing I'm going to mention before we head into the evening is Veterans Day, Thursday, downtown, 9 a.m. I believe it's 9 a.m. We will be having a little memorial for the Veterans Day, and everyone's welcome. It's right downtown, right there by the bridge, Andrews Park, and look forward to seeing everyone there. So with that, I am going to close the meeting. Good night, Vacaville.